Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Rooted. I am Natalie Andrea, and I am here today with the incredible David Somerville. David is somebody who came into my life more recently, but he has been one of the first male mentors and facilitators that I've worked with. And it's been healing on many levels. And my experience with him, my perception of him is that he is just this heart centered, grounded, integrated practitioner. And it's been a pleasure, David. Welcome to Rooted.
Oh, thank you, Natalie. I appreciate you inviting me, and it's been great getting to know you. I'm just happy to be here and share with your listeners.
Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yeah, it'll be
Not
fun.
only because I know you have so much to share, being someone who has explored probably most of the modalities that there are out there, both personally and professionally. You've experienced a lot and practiced a lot of those modalities too.
Yes.
And every time we have a conversation, it's like all wires online firing, and there's so many different threads and things that we can get into. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to share.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Yeah.
Okay, so I thought we would start off by just giving the listeners a little bit of context around how you got into this space. So like
Mhm.
how did you get into this whole world of healing personally?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, personally is the perfect word there. So for me, healing was a personal experience. Um, yeah. So when I was younger, I think I was always a sensitive kid.
Mhm.
You know, growing up, I didn't realize it at the time, of course. And I tried to fit in, fit into society and just life growing up in a small town in Ontario. And yeah, and I encountered kind of difficulty sort of understanding life and if I could say, oh, I came from a abusive family or something like that, it would be an obvious. I could talk about my story; it would make sense. But I had a nice family. My parents were really great. They weren't perfect or anything, but um, for whatever reason, I just had trouble. I was always, sort of questioning life. Like it didn't make sense.
Mhm.
Maybe my spiritual self knew that this is a difficult place to incarnate in.
Mhm.
But I didn't even think that way. I'm
Mhm.
just a kid, and playing with my GI Joes or playing hockey and doing all what everybody else did my age and being a guy and all that too. And then I just I hit a roadblock when I got into high school or yeah, probably grade 9 or whatever. I just life was a little painful, so I got into medicating
Mm.
with drugs and alcohol and all of that. Like most of the kids that I went to school with, to
Mhm.
a degree. But for me, it was, it seemed to be more of an escape from the feelings that I had. So, and my father was, he's a beautiful gentleman and wonderful father, but he wasn't emotional. Like he could have trouble with his emotions. The typical thing of dads, males in my generation.
Mhm.
And so he never showed me. He was my mirror of what a man is supposed to be, and so I loved him, and but again, I had trouble expressing myself emotionally. So all of a sudden I was feeling whatever I was feeling, and I couldn't even tell you, what the hell it was, but it was in my body.
Mhm.
And I could feel it whether I wanted to or not. And and then I medicated and everything. And this sort of led to more and more pushing down depression and stuff like that, which again, pushing depress something, right? Pushing down what I wasn't feeling at the time. And then I ended up at a stage of probably I went from like grade 9 to grade 12 or so, or 13, maybe a little bit more than that. And I reached a point where I was out of control. Like for me, I was basically an alcoholic, and luckily I didn't get into too many hard drugs or anything like that. A little bit, but luckily my higher selves, got my attention on that, so I stayed away. But yeah, so for me, I hit bottom. My hitting bottom was I just didn't want to be here anymore. It was too difficult, and I took an overdose one night. I wasn't conscious, but I think it was unconsciously. It was too painful, And I remember waking up in the morning and feeling like, oh, refreshed and everything like that. And I remember having this spiritual experience. It wasn't anything, I can't tell you this story where I went, met these beings and, all of that, but I just saw this white light that just surrounded me and I felt love. And I woke up and it was like a part of my soul. Some people might call it the walk-in experience.
Hmm.
That's when I went back then. That's what they kind of, they still talk about it that way. But it was like a soul dissension where my higher self, a part of my soul, downloaded with just an awareness, a bigger awareness of life. Like I asked my question: Is this what life's about? It's too painful, and all of that. And then guess my answer was that night I had this experience and it completely changed everything. All of a sudden, my friends that drank and I partied with and did all this stuff, and there's no judgment against them. That's just where I was, but I couldn't associate with them anymore. The vibration, or I just knew to survive, to overcome this, I had to change right away and on the spot. So I get into, yeah, so I even went to, psychiatrist thought I was going crazy because there was such a shift. I had like a Kundalini release with
Wow.
that, and it took me almost a year and a half to recover from that. It shifted my energy so much, and I became a hermit. My friends were saying, "Hey, what's wrong, Dave?" And their parents were like, "Well, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Come on." They're trying. People were trying to be supportive, but I just realized I had to separate myself from reality and find myself. The proverbial find yourself. That so many people did in the '60s and '70s. In their own way, and today too, of course.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, my healing process was, I went and the psychiatrist told me, no, you're just fine. Everything's fine. I was like, oh, that's good to know.
I'm not
So
crazy. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So, but I was definitely something going on, and I had to I was so like the Kundalini experience was so intense, on all levels. Like I literally became a hermit, and
What
as part
was
of my
that like? What was that like for you, the Kundalini? Because I've had a bit of a Kundalini
yeah,
awakening, but I'm curious
yeah,
what that was like for you,
yeah,
like what it felt like, what it,
yeah. It was overwhelming because it totally shifted my consciousness. Like life outside of me didn't make sense. The people that were around me, it was like I knew their names. Even my parents, I knew their names, but I didn't know who they were. Like on some level, like it's like the context of life completely changed. It's like like it's like a download,
yeah.
but your brain can't handle the information. It took basically a year and a half for it to integrate. Think of when you go
Wow.
to workshop, a couple of weeks, oh, I'm integrated,
Yeah.
and then imagine taking a year and a half to integrate after a workshop. Like that's a
Yeah.
hell of a workshop. So that's basically what it was, and it's a gift, really. I just needed to be, in my space, and then luckily I was, I've always been in the paranormal. Like
Hmm.
when I was a kid, my best friend's father owned a drugstore, and we used to go in the basement of the drugstore and read magazines, and there were all these UFO magazines and paranormal, and so this is kind of the way things were back in the '70s, and so anyways, basically, yeah. So I was into spirituality at that point, and I would order books from a New Age bookstore out in BC, actually, down on, what was the name of it? Anyways, you probably know the
Was
place
it
if it's
Banyan Books?
Banyan Books. That's it.
That was
Yeah.
it? Okay. I love that store. It's
Was it
so
on?
fantastic.
I can't remember the street.
It's
On
on
the street.
Broadway.
Broadway. That's
Broadway?
it. I
It's
used to order
Broadway?
it by the mail, and then I discovered one day, all of a sudden, I realized there was a New Age bookstore in Ottawa. So really, a couple of them actually. So I drove, like 16 after, I was beyond 16. So I took my parents' car one day and went, some excuse and boarded the car and went to Ottawa. And I couldn't believe the store. And was like, oh my God. And then I saw this card for a reader. I never had a reading before. So I called her and said, "Do you have time for reading? I'm in Ottawa." So she said, "Well, yeah, actually I do." So I came over, met her, and it was like the first time someone knew who I was. What she
Wow.
told me, it was like I was crying. Like it was the first time somebody understood who I was because she knew me, and she was a, soul family person, and one of actually she was my first teacher.
Wow.
So that started it. That all of a sudden my healing started right there in a conscious way, and then I discovered more of who I was. And then she was a teacher that taught us about intuition. She did like the higher chakras, and it's interesting because as I did my healing, we moved down the chakras. So the next teacher I had was heart, emotional. So we did the heart, and then the next teacher, major teacher after that, was about the body. So we would do, and of course I'm learning each one. I'm learning how to do it. I healed, and when I would back then, things were. It's not, it wasn't like YouTube or like, you got a course online, you read it and do it. Everything was exponential. So
Mhm.
workshops we actually became practitioners by doing it on each other. And it's not that that still exists, of course, but so it was very profound. So each of these I worked on the mind level or the intuition, and then my next teacher was the heart level, and then I got in the body, rebirthing and different modalities, and so really they were about my healing. When I got my healing, that's when I realized I need to learn this. I knew that I was going to be using these tools, and I just knew that. I didn't know how it was going to work or whatever, but so my healing process was, and it's interesting when I think about it. Now that I've been doing this since like 87 or somewhere in there, that I realize that now that things have changed so much, and the ability to heal, like the frequency of that's available now, that you can shift things much quicker. Back then it was slower, more visceral, feeling it in the body. Now the vibration has shifted so much that it's almost like it's not that you don't need to go to healing, but people are just healing, by living life. It's happening so quick. They're being put into their issues are coming up, and it's like they're living a workshop all the time. Where I had to go, I was stuck. I still had sick, but I would have to go and look for a workshop because it was difficult back then. You couldn't. It was not that you couldn't heal yourself, but I could, and a lot of people couldn't. So, but it's really evolved since then, where now it's just a case of, I almost feel like more like a guide than the process I use is very simple, and the methods I use are simple, and I tend to guide the person, and they're the witness and going through the process. Because that's really where we come in healing. It's really become easier. So getting back to, yeah, that was my healing process, and um, you know, and it's no different than any job. It's like I was apprenticing
Yeah.
by, all of the stuff that now I realize and look back, all the crap that it was on top of me, the pain I was suffering. That was my curriculum. Those are my textbooks. You wouldn't remember this, but we used to carry textbooks to high school, or
Mhm.
whatever. There's no computers, so that's what it's like. I was carrying all this cell memory, all this, trauma, and whatever else you want to call it, beliefs, and though that was my curricula for me to go through it to understand it, because nobody wants to go, for me anyways, I don't want to go to a healer that's just a paper healer. They've read it in a book, and it's not that they can't help you, of course, I'm not saying that, but someone that's experienced it, like we were talking before, we become like, we attract people to us in our service, that we have the key to what they're doing because we've experienced it. And so that's basically a nutshell, where what the healing process was for me. It
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
for sharing all of that. And there's so many pieces that you just dropped there that I was like, oof, taking mental notes of pieces we could go deeper on. And I love that you just said all of that, the pain or those experiences that you were holding, those were the
mm,
textbooks that you had
yes,
to
yeah,
master and study.
yeah, yeah,
And it's almost like unlocking those that you now have the key that you get to share with others to kind of teach
yeah,
them how to read their own textbooks and how to master their own because there's resonance there between yours and the people that are
yeah.
drawn to you.
We're talking in terms, because you're a practitioner as well.
Yeah.
So we're talking in terms of practitioners, but really it's not just for practitioners. We're
Yeah.
all that way. I
Yeah.
mean, we've all got a curriculum, whether we're consciously or wherever or not, that we're coming as a soul to experience for one reason or another. It's all personal. So just because I use it within my practice, you can use what you learn with your family, with how you are with people, with how you are with yourself. So you become a practitioner for yourself, because it creates a vibrational state, like a way of being. Like if I look at myself, when in '87 when I was suffering, life was like 5% joy, you know, and then the other side, 95% was pain, but now because of the healing I've done and the self-awareness and it's been a while, but is it now it's completely the opposite way that now I'm like 5%. And in fact, because it's so extreme the other way, as soon as I step off the path, or once something comes up, I immediately see it. It's like the razor's edge, they call it. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
the movie,
You
but
feel the
uh,
contrast
you do.
of that because you're
Yeah.
used to being in a more regulated, peaceful state, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
that when
Yeah.
something comes up, you're attuned to it. You feel the
Yeah.
contrast there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that you don't even know where you're heading when you're in the suffering. It's just you don't want to be there anymore. And I got to do something about this. Eventually you'll get there. That's bottom for some people, but hopefully you do it before that. But even if you're only like suffer 50% of the time, why would you accept that as your life?
Yeah.
So, of course, now that I've gone through the process for myself, I cannot share that. I can share the perception. You know what? you know, um, the suffering and the trauma that you feel, and whatever the suffering is, mentally, emotionally, or physically that you may feel, or a combination of that's just a reaction of the body to memories, negative beliefs, trauma you might have witnessed or experienced yourself that's on a body level. But we get accustomed that that's just the way life is. We look at the TV and what other people, it seems like that's what life's supposed to be. And then, and even some um, organizations or ways of thinking support that. Oh no, this is the way it is. Like, these lower emotions. Oh, we have to. It's not that against emotion, but like for instance, like anger and frustration and all of those things. Oh, you hear people saying, "Oh, you have to accept your emotions." Well, I agree. Because you don't want to, shove them down like I did when I was younger, and I was taught to do. But the thing is that those emotions are tied. What I've learned is those emotions are tied to your flight or flight response. So anger in that is an expression of your a protection system. So just like you would be driving down a road in a car, and a deer runs across, and you're like, "Oh, I just missed that deer." If you stopped and thought about what you felt at that moment when that happened, it almost feels like anger, because those lower emotions stimulate the body to act out of protection.
Yeah.
But if we have trauma stored in our system for whatever reason, doesn't really matter. When it's triggered, it we're in that. So we're in that, and then if we're stuck in that, if we can't, how do we get to joy? We don't even know. And some people, like I say, I it's tough for me to remember joy. If I go back to when I was a kid before, whatever happened in my life that gave me this trauma or whatever, I can remember a little boy that had fun in certain ways. But really, if you haven't, some people have never really experienced it, because maybe they had birth trauma, maybe they had early trauma in one form or another. It doesn't really matter the cause. And then all of a sudden they live this imprint and they think life is that way, that it's fun. And they can't even, the idea of joy is just a word, a
Yeah.
concept in their mind, but yet you have to feel it. So what I do in my work with people is based on what I learned over time. As I realized bit by bit, I uncovered all this stuff, the intuitive person at first, and then the next teacher, it was about the heart. So it was about emotional, letting go. And then I got into the body, and it was about the body releasing. So bit by bit, I went through that. And then I discovered, oh my God, when you uncover all of this, oh, there's joy. Is that what joy is? I remember I had a teacher, the heart teacher, um, you know, oh, and she did some body stuff too. She was amazing. I remember one time I was on a healing table with her, and she was saying, at the end of it, she says, "Oh, so what does it feel like to be in your body?" And I'm like, "Okay, I wasn't in my body. What do you mean?" She says, "Well, you weren't in your body." She said, "You were just like up to here." And then once she's talked about it, I think, "Oh my God, you're right." And then I became aware that during the week after, when I was integrating, I felt more like my voice actually dropped. The frequency got deeper because of my energy could come in my body. So the more you get in your body, and then all of a sudden I could feel, all of a sudden my heart resonates and it opens up, and I feel joy, because joy is is our that our divine self in the heart. It's kind of like you'll see the picture of the triangles, inverted triangles with a circle around it, and the heart's in the circle. Well, it's because basically the heart is we were created that the heart runs the show. It's just separation in our perception. Who knows how it happened? There's lots of stories that talk about why we're separated. Was it a choice? Blah blah blah. But it doesn't matter. This is the way it is. So when we're separated, then we lose that touch for our higher self, our divine self. So the outside world is reality. So how do we deal with that? So the process of releasing in these areas allows us to, the heart opens, and then all of a sudden, you can feel the heart. You don't even know what that's like, and you feel like you have to get used to that feeling. It's intense. You feel extremely vulnerable, and then all of a sudden the mind gets involved, because your mind is your protection system on the mental body, and then the physical body's got a protection system of the physical, so we don't walk off a cliff. But we have programming in the minds as beliefs and patterns, but we have maybe trauma. We've got, and it doesn't have to be like you were abused or something. It could just be you as a baby witnessing something, just being a sponge of energy.
Yeah.
And because we learn by what we see as a young child. So whatever that is in the body level, basically once we release that, once the heart's open, it can start communicate to the gut brain, and then all of a sudden it gets information. It's okay. We're safe now. So it's more the mind, because the body is more a soldier. So once you can clear the memory that's stored there, then the heart can communicate easier. It tends to be the mind, because it's kind of like a separate entity. The mental, our thinking, but it's because of separation, the mind, out of our survival, had to figure things out, and things don't always work out. And it's a control system, right? We see the ego or whatever. It's a separated mind. That's really what it is. So, so, once you open the heart, basically, at first the mind doesn't trust, it doesn't know the heart. So it's not going to open up. It's not going to trust the heart. It's not going to let you trust. So that's where someone, if you're doing meditating on the heart, and it's like, oh, I'm going to trust the flow, and you get into it, and all of a sudden the mind says, no, you're not. We don't trust this, and then you have this fight between the mind and the heart, which a lot of times the throat is in there too. So the
Yeah.
ability, can I express my heart? Oh no, we're not allowed to. I don't trust that yet. Or whatever the mind, whatever that talk is. So then, got to work in the mind, and got to work
Yeah.
on releasing beliefs and patterns, and then eventually, guess what? The heart will, or the mind will trust the heart, and then the mind will become, or the mind will step off the throne, and your heart will be the guide. That's sort of the process I take people through.
Yeah.
That's what I went through personally. So
That's
yeah,
what I went through too. Mine,
yeah,
my journey mirrored that in the sense
yeah,
of, rock bottom, all of a sudden I didn't
yeah,
have a spiritual awakening in the same sense of you, but I became aware that there was something in me that was wanting
yeah,
to change, that needed to change. And so it
mm,
it sparked a journey of trying to understand and seeking,
yeah,
which started out
okay,
as largely spiritual, intellectual, and then
yeah,
eventually it had to come down into the heart and into the body where all of that had to integrate. And as you were
mm,
speaking, the word that kept coming into my mind was congruence. It's like congruence and a meeting of the mind, of the heart, of the body,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that information and energy can flow in harmony with ease and
yeah,
congruence.
yeah, yeah.
And there's pieces here I want to unpack, and I'd love to get
Sure.
into the body and dis-ease and what creates that in your perception and experience. But one of the
Yeah.
things you mentioned, like you had such a profound awakening in the sense of it's almost like it broke your brain, it broke your perception
Mm,
of
yeah,
reality and life as you knew it. And then it took time for things to reintegrate and reharmonize.
yeah, hmm,
And how nowadays it's interesting that life brings you, like, part of one of the biggest pieces that I teach is that, especially for those women or someone experiencing symptoms of dis-ease, life is your medicine. Life will bring you all the medicine that
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
heal, but sometimes you can't see the medicine right in front of you because you don't see
Yes.
that as medicine because we're
Yeah.
so used to medicine coming from a bottle, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Most of the time, for anyone who's kind of inching into their journey of healing, most of the time, at least for those that I work with, healing happens more in a layering context, especially for women like mothers, for example.
Mhm.
Most of the time, a mother is not going to have an experience like yours where their whole reality breaks and all of a sudden they're hermiting and
Yeah.
having to reintegrate because they have children to look after. And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
most of the time in those
Yeah.
contexts, what I find
Yeah.
is that, I mean, in one sense, I think so many of us would think that we want that, like, oh, we want
Yeah.
all of a sudden to experience this shift, not
Yes.
knowing that it's going to completely shift our perception
Yes.
of reality and
Yeah. Yeah.
break our
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
Whereas what we often need, depending on our life circumstances, is a much more layered, where you're having
Mhm.
something come up, these micro
Yeah.
shifts. So
Yes.
smaller little bite-sized shifts where you can bring in a new level of awareness and slightly shift your energy and then reintegrate and again and again
Yes.
and again.
Yes.
So just
Yes.
I just wanted to kind of reflect on that because for anyone listening that's like, "Oh my God, is my
I don't
world
want
going to
that.
break?" Yeah. For me it's
Yeah.
been much more of a
Yeah.
layered process of
Mhm.
catching up so that I
Yeah.
could still be
Yeah.
a mother to my children
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
but there was that piece that you mentioned and I would love to just get
Yeah.
into your
No.
perception on how dis-ease, how physical symptoms actually manifest in the body and what you've seen both like either personally or within your practice. Like what
Yeah. Yeah.
why do people experience dis-ease and whether that is on a body
Mhm.
level, whether it has
Yeah.
there's the emotional piece involved, or whether there's a spiritual piece
Mhm.
involved. I would love to just
Yeah.
hear your
Sure.
perception and flow on that.
Sure. Sure. It can be varied. Depending on the person, it's all unique. It's all that's why I love doing this work when I work with people. It's it's like the proverbial what's that cereal? You put your hands in and pull out, and it's a different. Oh, I can't remember the name of that cereal.
Is it
Anyway,
Lucky
oh, bits and bites.
Charms?
Bits and
Bits and
bites.
bites, bits and
Yeah, it's not
bites.
cereal. Yeah, it's like everybody's like bits and bites. You pull out a different hat. It's always different, like the commercial said. Yeah, people are like that. And I love it. I love people. I guess it's funny. It's not like, I'm sounding like, oh, I love the suffering that people are going through. I don't, of course. It's not a, it's a terrible thing we have, that we're going through this,
Yeah.
but because I'm through it, I find, it's just everybody's so unique in terms of how to approach it.
Mhm.
Now, when I do that, when I work with people, it's because it's unique. Remember, I talked about the first level that I went through was the intuitive. So, and again, when I relate this, I don't want to sound like I'm just a practitioner. That this is, becoming aware and connecting with the intuitive part of you, opening your heart is the most powerful thing you can do. Like I tell people, I've got this little meditation. You're familiar with it,
Mhm.
just to open the heart and expand it. It's a simple, like 10-minute meditation. Actually, I'll make it accessible to your listeners.
Beautiful.
Uh,
We'll link it. That
yeah.
would be
If
amazing.
if there was one thing if I could only do one thing to help people, that would be it. I give them that meditation. It's all the truth is within you, like all the
Mhm.
doctrines talk about it's all within and all that. Yeah, it's true. It's in the heart. So, if you
It's
can learn,
interesting coming from the place of dis-ease, though, because when
yeah,
you get to that point, you are
yeah,
so, and I speak from
yeah,
experience myself and also
yeah,
really now observing someone from the other side of like the lens that I have now,
yeah,
you you are in such a deep distrust with yourself because
yes,
the messaging that we receive as someone
yeah,
going through the system and receiving all of these labels and diagnostics is, well,
yes,
actually your body's broken, so you're
mhm,
attacking yourself, your body's
yeah,
attacking itself,
yeah,
or there is something
yeah,
faulty going on within you. So
yeah,
it's the journey of going from there and this deep self
yeah,
distrust and feeling like your body's broken to then
yes,
oh, I have all the answers within me, and there's this
That makes
intelligence.
no
It's
sense.
a big
Yeah,
leap, right?
it is definitely. And that's the thing is that um, yeah, in terms of like trusting, okay, so the idea of having to figure it out yourself, like that's the mind, let's see the verbiage. I have to figure it out. I have to go to the experts. That's all mind stuff. And I'm not saying that the experts don't have the answer, but is that the right answer for you? Or the right, remember, holistic. So, I used to be a person that was against conventional medicine in some ways, drugs and stuff. But I've come to realize that everything in creation that's been created has a purpose. So it's just to find how that works. So, imagine being able to access the master doctor that knows exactly what's right for you. Now, do you know where that master doctor resides? Right here. So, and this is where, it doesn't mean to say, oh, does that mean, oh, am I going to have to go to school to become a doctor to be able to heal myself or something? Of course, we learn, about nutrition and stuff. That's part of the awareness. But really, it's just a knowing a sense. See, when you open the heart, you're accessing that part of you that is I don't want to get too out there, but beyond time and space. It's that
Yeah.
part that already knows what you need. It's that knowing. Like we've all experienced it, where you're just drawn to inspiration about something. You have this feeling to do something, and it just opens the door. Something amazing happens. It's a miracle in your life. And if you stopped and thought, I could never have thought about that. I could never have planned that out because that's the heart. The heart is about miracles, and so this is where thinking about healing. I don't know if I'm going to a tangent here, but I went to Joe. I've been to Joe Dispenza's
Ooh,
workshops.
I
I
would
love
love to
Joe.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. But he talks about his story was, after he healed himself, he looked in, he wanted, okay, how does this work? So he did a study of people that have miraculous healing. And then he discovered when the healing happened is when they let go. When they let go of what their mind thought. A lot of them had serious illnesses where they didn't have a choice to let go, a lot of them. But still, the point is that once they let go, it's the heart that creates miraculous. It's not the mind. It's not, the mind can think its way, and I'm not saying that miracles can happen that way, but it's a lot harder.
Mhm.
If you can learn to, again, open up your heart and it guides you, and it might guide because you're communicating with your heart all of a sudden. There's a direct, one, the idea is to create this communication so it's always there. So why would you just want it when you're sick?
Mhm.
Why couldn't you use that to buy broccoli at the store?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? To get the right broccoli. I know it's saying it sounds ridiculous, but if you can develop that interconnection, that's the number one thing because the healing will come from that. You'll be guided to attract the right person because remember, we're energy, So, one of the things I realized, early on was we were all energy and that we attract, like the secret talks about, we attract what our consciousness holds, right? So, but if you can be open and allow the master physician, the master creator, the master husband, the master wife that's in our heart that knows exactly what our family needs, our children need. That's all this, it's the same
Yeah.
source right here.
Yeah.
So, but I know that sounds simple and, airy fairy maybe to some people, but, why not try it? Why not? What's it going to take? Do a little
Yeah.
meditation, open that heart, and then see what I find and this is something I was given a little while back. I don't make healing simple, but the simple way of looking at it is a communication and an energy problem. The body can heal itself. It doesn't mean me to, as a practitioner, I can guide you and I'm connected and help, but really, honestly, the body doesn't need us to heal it. It's a self-fixing mechanism. It's just if the information can't get there, if you're driving your car and there's no oil in it, you're out of luck. It's going to
Yeah.
eventually seize up. Then what do you do? So
So
it's like,
let's unpack this because
yeah,
I'm like preach as you're saying this because we're not separate from higher intelligence, and as you
oh,
said, like nature, look
yeah,
at nature and the perfect ecosystem that it is. It is self-correcting, self-adapting. There are microorganisms and micro processes that fit into the whole
yeah,
macro of what nature is, and our body is that, and we're not
yeah,
separate from higher intelligence, and yet at some point when someone gets to the point of like having some sort of large expression from their
hmm
body such as dis-ease, there is something there that is bogging down that natural flow of intelligence and that information flow.
Hmm.
Let's unpack what those things are because it's like
Yeah,
something's actually interfering with that, right?
yeah, yeah.
Call it conditioning, call it emotional pain.
Yes.
What's your perception
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, and because everybody's unique, one of the things, early on I discovered because I learned about chakras and a mental body, an emotional body, physical body, and spiritual body. And then there's bodies of higher vibrational states that, might not relate.
Hmm.
But what I discovered was is it like I was saying, I worked on developing our intuition, then it was my heart, and I was doing healing along the way. If you think about it, my physical body is the most gross. It's the lowest vibration.
Dense.
So a thought can take, like I had someone that, actually a client of mine, had just discovered they had breast cancer, and the doctor told them, oh, it probably took her 10 years to develop. And she was like, wow, I didn't even know I had, like, I didn't know how that. So if you think about it, vibration, a thought is a higher vibration, and then it creates. First we have to have a thought of what we create. It could come from inspiration, or it could just come from our thinking processes or whatever. And then we have an emotional aspect. Like I talked about myself being a male in the, born in the 60s. It was like, I don't even know what emotion is. I don't know how to process it, so I could get stuck there. And then eventually, guess what? Over time, like for male prostate cancer and stuff like that, if you ever read You Can Heal Your Life
Hmm.
by Louise Hay. It's like a groundmark book, and like the channel definitely channeled amazing. But that came with our emotional healing that methods that we learned and I used for my own healing. Is it that it outpictures in the body in a certain way? So you can say liver, gallbladders, anger, and stuff like that. So you can relate back to the emotional states.
Hmm.
And then there can be beliefs that actually support the emotional states that started it. So maybe you were taught a certain thing. So what happens is yeah, because it
It's a
cycles,
loop.
and then we live from between our mind and our emotional state, and then our body outpictures it as rigid. If I'm like, if I have a stick neck all the time, I'm to have rigid thinking. So I came from being like you talked to me as being balanced and
Hmm.
all of that. Yeah, I didn't used to be. I was a thinker and controlling, and controlling myself, and my mind was like, yeah, anyways, you get the idea. So I had a stiff neck all the time, and stuff like that. So it outpictures in the body. So this is where illness of the body is an outpicturing generally of a mind belief, or some on that's the mental body,
Hmm.
or it could be an emotional state. It could be trauma stored in the body as well. But a lot of times when it's outpictured in the body, it's been there a long long time.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? So yeah, so this is where, I'm an intuitive. I developed that. So I'm lucky that I can get down. I'm a clairaudient mostly, so I get information that comes, and I'm told, oh, where to work with a person and all of that. But we all have that ability.
Yeah.
You don't need me. I help people access it when maybe they can't, or they're stuck and all of that, just like I did with the healers that work with me. That's great. But really, everybody has that ability. If they can open their heart and get used to that process, then all those, you'll be able to, whatever needs to come up will come up. So,
Hmm.
so when I work with people, I don't decide what's going to happen. I don't know. When you come and we connect and everything, just like our talk right here, we have no idea where we're going, but
Hmm.
it just goes where it needs to go.
Hmm.
So this is where, maybe you would work on the mental side of things. If you're a thinker, if you think your way, so there's little hints you get. You could think about yourself. If you tend to be controlling in your mind, you can't meditate, and that would tell me there's a lot going on in the mental body that
Hmm.
you could look at, doing self work, or finding somebody to help you with that. And then also, if your emotions, like if you find you're highly emotional, and more emotional, if you have a lot of grief,
Hmm.
feel hurt,
Or non-emotional or completely
or
disconnected.
non-emotional.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the other thing.
Yeah.
Life is too intense, right?
Yeah.
Which I was too. So even though I say myself a thinker, I I was that way too. I just
Yeah.
turned it off, you know,
Yeah.
so the
And
best I
the
could.
tricky thing about that,
Yeah,
as being someone who was that, is I didn't
yeah.
know that I had it turned off. I
No, no,
did
yes.
not know that
Yeah,
I had repressed
yeah,
all these emotions and that I
yeah,
couldn't access healthy anger
yeah,
to, you know what I mean? And
yeah, yeah,
I think in that way, the body largely reflects what we aren't conscious of, because if we were
yes,
conscious of it,
yeah,
it
yeah.
wouldn't need to be there.
No, no.
And
And
so
that's a
it's
wonderful
seeing
gift of
it
the
that way,
body.
right?
Yeah, and that's a wonderful gift. You talked about how we don't like our body. So a lot of, what I do work with people when body stuff comes up, a lot of time I'll get them, we need to, help clear the process, but we need to honor the body. The body's been holding all this stuff and we need to, learn to love our body. And some people have trouble with that because their body is the vehicle of their incarnation and they've been in an abusive situation. Let's say, I don't mean to pick all the extreme
Hmm.
versions of trauma,
Hmm.
but or just I don't like my body for one reason or another. It's not pretty enough,
Hmm.
or all the, and again, that's the mind programming,
Hmm.
right? All this stuff. So so the idea is, you want to get to the point where you begin to create a relationship with your body again, to
Hmm.
love your body and to honor it, that it serves us.
Yeah.
It's held all this stuff until we are ready to process it. So the textbooks have been on the shelf in our body, until we're ready to take them off the shelf and, read them, live it. So bring it to the surface. Because a lot of times, remember, if we're young, like when I work with people about trauma that's young, like even birth trauma. I work with people, I'm a rebirther and but I use other methods with that. Sometimes that'll come up. But think of it, when you're a young baby, you have no intellect. So you can't understand. You're just a big feeling
Yeah.
being. And, you're just trying to survive, and hopefully God, mom and dad are like within, arm shot or, you know what I mean? When I need them, and then what if they're not? What if your parents couldn't give you, like, Donna, my wife works in this as well. And she always says, she'll say to her clients, that you needed $1.50 of love in that moment, but your mom only had 50 cents.
I love that.
You know what I mean? So what can
But
you do
so
about that?
often we take that as meaning something about
They don't love
ourselves.
me, or we project it, and
Yeah.
but why do we project it? Because we don't understand it. We
Yeah.
don't have the experience. We don't have the intellect is really not developed yet.
Hmm.
So we take things personally
Yeah.
because it is personal. We feeling, like, understand, the information. Do you care about the information? If you're putting your hand on the stove by accident and you feel it burning your hand, you're moving it, right? Because you don't care about what happened there. You just need to move your hand, right? So this is where, as a child, we just take things on as a sponge, and we talk about like in the mind level. I would do theta healing is one of the methods I use. So, we talk about people being in theta brainwave till they're about 7 or 8 years old. So we're a sponge. We use mimicking. We have cells in our eyes that's why you take the spoon up and then your child all of a sudden does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
How do they do that? You didn't really teach them. We have cells that actually, as children, that mimic. So we
Mirror
can learn.
neurons. They have like
Mirror,
some,
that's it.
yeah,
Mirror
mirror
neurons.
neurons.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. So the idea of that is great because we learn to do it. But what if we're experiencing something that isn't so hot? This isn't heaven. I should say it isn't. It is heaven. You just don't understand yet.
I'm with you.
You know,
Yes.
you know what I mean? You don't get
Yeah.
there yet. It is. But so the idea is that you experience this, but yet all you do is store it, and it's stored as books in the shelf until you
Yeah.
grow, and then when you're a teenager, all of a sudden you have hormones, and then you're all of a sudden this emotion comes up with your boyfriend because he's whatever he did, or I could turn that around, the girlfriend.
Hmm.
But anyway, so again, it's just experience. A book comes off the shelf, so
Yeah.
you're experiencing, you're able to process it. So this is what life is about. And at first, you're terrible at it. You're just horrible, and because you have to learn. It's all about learning what it's like to have an emotional body, and all of that. So, um, and that's what our life's about. It's and then and the nice thing about pain or suffering is that it's a gift actually, because if we didn't have pain or suffering, Okay, so I want to relate it to the psychopathic. The mindset of a psychopathic is they say they don't have empathy, they don't feel. So it's kind of like someone that doesn't feel, and they're doing things and making decisions from their mind only. They don't have a feeling sense. They don't understand what's going on, and they do terrible things because honestly, they're missing something that we have. So we would never treat people the way they do. And it's not a judgment of them. They're wounded. Like they're
Mhm.
they're distorted in their ability to be human in some ways. So it's the same idea. Until you learn to develop that to awaken that emotional body and understand it. How do you understand it? It's on the book. Sorry, it's by being
Life.
exactly.
Yeah.
And souls, for me, my experience, and this is just me, that I think I chose this difficult route. uh, you know and I know everybody has their own difficult. It's all, it's subjective, of course.
Yeah.
But some souls would choose, you'd say an easier life or whatever. But we don't know what other people are experiencing. We have our own unique way. And so the idea of looking at that was one of the learnings I got in the teachings. Was it everything happens for a reason. And I remember thinking, what? I created this, or I chose this? Oh, come on. You know, this,
It's a tough pill to
girl,
swallow when
it
you're in
is.
it.
And,
Why would I
and
choose this? How could I choose this?
it
Right?
is. Yeah. And I'm not saying that accidents don't happen. We're in a free will world. So, when I say that, I say it with compassion.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
you know, I understand now that I'm an eternal person. And guess what? I'm here. I survived.
Yeah.
I survived all of, I go on for 10 minutes, I'll bore you to death, but I could go talk about my trauma and stuff. And, but I survived it. And you know what? I'm so glad I went through all of that because I would be the person I am today and the joy I have in my life. It's amazing. Life is totally amazing. But you know what? I'm glad I had the extreme of it in some ways because I see people around me that they don't have, it's like the volume of the suffering isn't very loud, and they just go, it's like they put up with it, and they can live their whole life. I look at, I would anyways, there's just people I see I've known for a long time. It's like they've lived years, decades, and they don't change because
It
they've
doesn't get
just
loud
okay,
enough.
it's a little bit
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah.
And so I look at it as a gift. And if you can just say, okay, I didn't know, so it's no judgment on you by saying I created this. Oh, I'm an idiot. What did I do? So I tend to be a person that would beat up myself, not
Yeah.
project another, not just me.
Yeah.
So I would beat myself up, but then I realized that no, no, okay, I'm doing this for a reason. But then once I connected to that inner heart, then I would let that go. Okay, creator, or whatever your belief systems are, super conscious mind, whatever, please show me, guide me. I
Yeah.
need your help. And that was the biggest thing. Oh, I'm glad. See how things work. It just got back to where a point I wanted to make early on was my my process, where I thought I was going crazy. I asked for help. I did everything by myself. I was isolated. I'm an Aquarian, so I tend to like doing things
Me
myself.
too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go. High
Hey,
five.
there we
Yeah.
go. All
Yeah.
right.
Welcome to the
So yeah,
club.
yeah. So, so you get that, like, it's not like Aquarians tend to be more like, for the world type thing,
Yeah.
but in a different way. So, I did things by myself, but I realized, oh God, I'm doing horrible at this. So I realized I thought I was going nuts. I wasn't. Okay, I needed help. So I asked for help. And that's when everything changed, was that help. So it started with help from people and,
Yeah.
what I can do.
Which
And then
really is help through
it is.
intelligence, higher intelligence. And
Exactly.
I think the
Exactly.
point that you
Yeah.
make there, when you have that take you to your knees moment, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, well,
Yeah.
why does there need to be suffering? Why does there,
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
speaking of here is
Yeah.
contrast, meaning
That's it.
you can't, how do you appreciate like warm if you didn't ever feel freezing cold? And it's like, how do you appreciate these profound states
Yeah.
of love and joy and
Yeah.
peace if you haven't
Yeah.
experienced the other side of the spectrum? And sometimes when things do get so loud, that is what creates the opening to
Yeah.
allow in something higher than you. And same with me,
Yeah.
when things got so loud, that's when I was like, please help, like help me. I will
Yeah.
listen. I'm open to something beyond my mind right now. And I think that's it's the cracking open of the heart, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know what that
Yeah.
is, but it's
Yeah.
pretty common
Well,
with
well, it's the way I perceived it was so funny because my mind was so strong. Like I was a thinker. I was just surviving myself, right? Trying to figure out how things. And I remember when I finally had that let go moment, it was my mind trying to. It was a protection system,
yeah,
really. So it's not I judged myself for it at the time, but I realized after, no, it was just my mind doing its job. It didn't have all the information. It couldn't know the future. It was just trying to survive. So when I finally let go, it was like my mind said, when my heart took over, it was like my mind said, well, thank the friggin', oh, I'm so glad.
yeah.
I've been doing this for so long. I'm terrible
I'm
at it.
exhausted. Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And isn't that the language when people are like, if we're talking on a spiritual sort of the dynamics of the mind and the heart and the
Yeah.
body, but really, isn't that what you feel in your life? Like
Oh,
when
it's like
you're
I'm
just,
sick and tired of being
yeah,
sick and
yeah.
tired.
And the thing is that doesn't have to be a hit. It could be hit bottom this week.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So why put up with it? Like, so, it's learning to, when you can learn to surrender that. And, one of the biggest things I learned actually in my work, my wife Donna, is really good at this too. But I remember looking at her where she would dialogue, like I would, sort of wait for inspiration and stuff like that. But she said, don't, I watched her one day and she said, well, you don't ask questions. And I was like, oh no, I just kind of wait for what I'm given and then I'll share it or it'll help me guide me through my own like process or working with a client. And then she says, well, you don't dialogue? Oh, no, and she's a writer, right? So that was used to her. She was thinking about dialoguing. So that was the other thing is that, learning to dialogue, like to ask the question, to say, I surrender, create a dialogue, like get up in the
Yeah.
morning, like do that meditation that I'm going to share and then just say, okay, creator, where or super conscious, whatever you want to call it,
Universe,
higher,
source,
higher
God.
self,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
it's that higher part of you, and just say, okay, look, can you help me with this? I don't have an answer, and it needs permission. Is remember, it's free will world, so it doesn't mean to say that part of you can interject, and it can, and it sometimes. I can think of times when I was doing stupid things, when I was, unconscious things that it came in and intervened and,
Yeah.
saved my butt. That happens. But really, why, like I was saying, to use that connection in a way, little things like I go, and my first teacher taught us this, to anybody in tuition. She says, when you go to the grocery store, and you can pull in the parking lot, well, where's my parking spot? So, create this little exercise where, and I'll be driving along and it'll be like Saturday and it'll be really busy. And I get the feeling, turn here. And then my mind says, well, no, there'll be no parking spot there. It's right out front. Look, there's no spots. And then I turn, I follow it, and then I turn and somebody pulls out exactly when I'm doing it. It happens all the time. So another thing, like I was talking about broccoli, I'll go to the store and I'll say, okay, is this the broccoli? And I do it just unconsciously because it's a habit. My subconscious does it now. I don't have to think about it. I'll
It's
say,
a
is
new
this the right
program,
thing?
a healthy new
New program.
program. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I'm engaging my higher self to creating a pattern of communication. So, but guess what? Because it's broccoli and parking spots, is it threatening? Is it going to
No.
is it going to engage my fight or flight response or my mind? It's kind of like it's tricking the
Yeah.
protection system because there's no threat in getting broccoli. So
Yeah.
what if it's the
It's
wrong
it's
crop or
playing. It's playing and curiosity
exactly,
with more trivial
yeah,
things, but they're actually when you zoom
training it.
up, they're actually not that
Yeah,
trivial because it's no
no,
different than
yeah,
with a bigger
yeah,
thing. And
yeah,
similarly, I think so many of us have been deterred from asking questions from a very
yeah,
young age. Stop
yes,
asking all these questions. It wasn't encouraged. So
yeah,
we, to your point
exactly.
about dialoguing,
Be
oh, you
be
don't
heard and
ask
not
questions.
be heard and not seen, or whatever the phrase was.
There you go.
I
And I
don't
know
mind
for
saying it.
me, it was like I
Yeah,
stopped asking questions, and that's one of the most
yeah,
valuable things is I've started
yeah,
questioning things again.
yeah,
And I played similar games as you, as
yeah,
I would, I'm a big number person. So I'd be like, okay, what time am I going to arrive there?
yeah,
4:43. Okay,
yeah,
cool. Let's see what
yeah,
happens. And then of course you're like, did I drive faster to get there at 4:43 because I arrived there?
yeah,
But
Yeah,
yeah, it's like or before you look at the phone, your phone's ringing before you look at
yes.
it or
Who
it
is it?
dings. Who is it? Don't look at it.
Yeah,
It's like it's
yeah,
these micro, it's like these
yes,
micro doses of like
yeah,
building trust back with
yes,
intelligence that you are and that's all
yeah,
around you by very
yeah,
trivial things
yeah.
within your life that aren't threatening, as you said.
Exactly. And it doesn't engage the, see what some people do that'll come to me, they'll say, oh, well, it didn't work out. My boyfriend, I didn't know whether to leave him or, that sort of thing. And it's too big to trust
Yeah.
that part. And then when you fail, then guess what? You've created a result that your mind, see, I told you, you can't trust it.
It's the
And
reinforcing
or
feedback
see,
loop where you notice
exactly.
the thing that confirms the belief that
Yeah.
you can't trust
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but really, it's you honor the body, honor them. I never make the body wrong or the mind wrong. It can seem like utterly ridiculous. That's okay. But really, it doesn't matter how it plays out. It's protecting you.
Yeah.
It's doing its best it can.
Yeah.
It's not its job to look after us the way it's taking the information and making it human.
Yeah.
That's what the mind is here
Yeah.
for. Like now, I don't. It's funny. I used to be a like fantasy or a dreamer. I used to sit and look out the window and David, you know, do your schoolwork. I was always looking out the window and they moved me to the other side of the room, away from the window. That's the way it was. So in it, yeah, it's okay. But I realized that there became a negative aspect there. So it's like my mind took that and would create negative things from it because I was so creative. And one of the things I learned was I, I could hear my wife Donna say, "Get that puppy on a leash." My ego, which is just my mind, my ego, or my protective system that I'd use my creativity to all of a sudden create thoughts or beliefs or just a process of thinking that was not good, that wasn't supportive. Because it was separated, it wasn't connected to the truth of that would know what to do,
Mhm.
and so yeah, so basically, learning to trust that, um, yeah. So just that process of being able to surrender to the heart in ways that are non-threatening,
Yeah.
like what you said, is yeah, you just add those as two more things to give people to do if you're
It's
listening to
building
this.
up the muscle and
It
building
is,
up the muscle of
yeah,
trust.
yeah,
And also,
yeah,
what you're talking about, self-awareness becomes so important
yeah,
because
yeah,
as you start to observe the thoughts that you're thinking or the ways that you're
yeah,
feeling where you previously
yeah,
were on autopilot, you were just running
yeah,
with the programs that you weren't aware were there, which, as you
yes,
said, they served you at one point in time because they
yeah,
allowed you
kept me
to
alive. Yeah,
adapt to the situation
yeah,
that you were in. and
yeah,
and oftentimes when things get very contrasty or loud, whether that's in expressions from your body and your body screaming at you, or whether that's life screaming at you through other things, it's often that
yeah,
invitation to, oh, okay, what are the thoughts running here? What are the what are the books falling off the shelf right now that I need to take a moment and a
yeah,
sit down here to have a
yeah,
read through so that I can
yeah.
shift, because really it's often an invitation to
Yeah.
shift, to
Oh,
grow,
I often
expand.
say that our body is always yelling at our body is trying to heal itself all the time, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's always trying to process what we're unconscious of. It doesn't always get our attention. So I'll tell people like little things like, um, it's just to be aware of your body when you get out in the shower, when you're new getting in the shower, just say, I love you, body. I thank you. And then ask your body instead of your mind, like I got to work till 5. I got this extra thing to do. Well, maybe I'll work till 5:30. I really want to finish this. Just to stop and say, put your hands in your body, or even your hands in your heart. Because your heart's your inner connection. Just put your. I always say that like Americans will say, I have allegiance to the flag. You put your hand in your heart and have allegiance to yourself. Say, okay, body, do we have enough in? Should I just go home now? Just
Mhm.
and stop and feel the
It's the
answer you
inner
get.
listening, the inner
Yeah,
listening that we are often conditioned
yeah, yeah,
out of. It's funny,
yes,
when I was developing Rooted, I was listening. I was doing a lot of listening. And,
yeah,
the disease that I was diagnosed with is called Still's disease. It's very, very rare, but it's a
yes,
variant of lupus, rheumatoid arthritis.
yeah,
And when I reflect back, it's like again, seeing how these things are happening for us, and it's part of the plan. We chose it for some way, shape, or form. Those
Yeah.
textbooks for me within my body, they were there teaching me and inviting me back to
Yeah.
stillness within myself and within the intelligence that lived within me. It's almost like I had a disease of an inability to be still because of
Yeah.
all the programs and the conditions and earning
Yeah.
love and the distractions of our world. And
Mhm. Yeah.
when I actually sat down and started to be still, that's how I started connecting with the answers. And
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
what I would receive is the conditions that we're diagnosed with are the conditioning. The conditioning is the condition. So
Yes.
the pieces that have us not listening to ourself, or as we're
Yeah.
saying, not tuning in within us, there's a reason for all
Yeah.
of these things, and they're not
Yeah.
wrong. They served us
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, then the body's saying, hey,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
look at this, let's
Yeah.
unpack this, and you're ready to shift it.
Yeah.
And it is a gift.
Yeah. And at first, of course, it's like when you're going through the trauma, you don't want to hear, "Oh, you created it yourself," or self responsibility is a big thing for people to accept.
It
That
is.
what, and so when I work with people, sometimes I know they're not ready to hear that language
Yeah.
because it's not time. They're not ready for that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't decide, I can feel that, so the compassion of that connection. When I work with people, I'll connect to their higher self or so the interaction when it's like I'm connected and it's their higher self through me, giving me what to do next
Yeah.
and interact with them. So I'll get the words. So, but think about that. I'm talking about in a session, but that with yourself.
Yeah.
If you think about your emotional body or your mental body. If you're a business, you're going to have a board meeting every day. What are we going to do today? And everybody understands that. Oh yeah, let's get together and talk about what you're doing, what your needs are, in the development department versus the sales versus in a company. Yeah, everybody gets that and goes along with it, but we don't do it. Why would you do that within yourselves? And for whatever reason, first of all, we didn't even understand that we have those aspects. We're just a human body, and do we even have a spirit? And even when you get into that, it's just like you said, there's layers of first of all, you have to uncover, oh my God, I'm not my physical body, or oh, I didn't know I had those trapped emotions. Oh, those belief systems, they came from a genetic pattern through my mother.
Mhm.
I thought that was me. I thought I was this person. So I was beating myself up, or I keep hitting a wall and and it affects my self worth, because I think I'm that, but
Mhm.
I'm not that. It's just a program. So so that like you say, life's about first of all putting the curriculum in the body, and then one by one uncovering. And the nice thing is that creation is loving. Like one thing I've learned, because I wanted to get it all done in a week and a half. My healing, all that. I remember when I started. Let's get her done. Let's do it. I'll do
Well,
all these
you
workshops.
did, and then it took some time to
Yeah.
integrate, but
Well, I thought, well, that part of it did, but then I realized it's a life path, it's a life experience. And quite frankly, we can't deal with all of that at once. Like I say, Eckhart Tolle, right? He had his awakening all at once, sitting on a park bench or whatever. Yeah, that's great. Some souls, that's what it is.
Mhm.
But for most people, it's not. It's just layer by layer, and it's loving what the soul want. You're not given what you can't handle. That's kind of one of the biggest things was, because even just that awareness, I'm not given what I can handle, please. So you can even ask your higher self if it's too intense, just say, can you lessen that a little bit? It's a little too intense.
Slow it down a little bit. Yeah.
Because we're like the expression of the physical part of creation.
Mhm.
So so it's like the information we have is important, even to your higher self. So, I had this awareness once because I used to think, oh, our higher self knows everything. It does, but you got to remember we're the human expression of our soul and our higher self or creation on another level, whatever your beliefs are. But the information we give, it's a feedback loop. So if we can share what we're feeling and what we're doing, it's almost like, oh, okay. And if we ask, tone it down. It's a little too intense right now. See, we think, we tend to think of ourselves, because sometimes it comes healing. Like for me, it came through spirituality, that type of thing. So, I kind of, put that, my higher self on a pedestal, or creation or God or whatever on a pedestal. And, but no, it's another aspect of who I am.
Yeah.
So you know what? They have a game plan of what they do. They look after us. I have a game plan. I'm not the higher self. I'm the lower self playing out what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've got the help of someone, like a mentor.
Yeah.
I've got a mentor that'll help me through life.
And it's
So why not ask?
part of you,
It
not on
is.
a pedestal, separate. And I
It's
agree. For a long
oh,
time, I saw that as above me, beyond me, outside of me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it's both. It's the dualistic nature of being
yeah,
here as a soul in a human body, where we are not creators and we are not just at the mercy of creation. We are
yeah,
co-creators. So we get to play in both. And I think we're here to
yeah.
experience both, like all of it.
That's it. Yeah. Well, when we unify with that energy, we become an all. But our perception, it's funny when The Secret came out and all that, it was like, oh, I'm the creator of my life. Well, that's great. The ego loves that. I can do whatever I want. This is great. This is the best news I've heard, in a year.
Cue
So
humbling, cue
exactly.
humbling
Well,
experience.
yeah. And then of
Yeah.
course, I took that and I created, and just, created things that were not necessarily for me, or even I could feel like distortions in my body because it didn't feel right, like
Mhm.
trying to create. So then when I realized, life experience took to me that, I'm at the point now where I'm not a creator, I'm a receiver.
Mm,
I'm a receiver of the information that I need and what I need. And yeah, you can say co-creator. Well, that's the wholeness
mm,
of my higher self, lower self, and then me, being the human that's doing the creating. But now I realize, oh my God, I'm the receiver, and then I play it out what I'm doing, and that's my role in it. And then when I play it out, the information is transported through my heart to my higher self and creation. And then information, it's like a feedback loop,
mm.
just like it happens in our body between our heart and the glands and everything. You think it's going to change if to our connection through it's the same model of expression. It's a communication system,
It's
and
like the
this is where
microcosm, and then they talk about the macrocosm, and
exactly it's the
yeah.
same thing. So the block is so illness is really a communication illness. I know that sounds simple, but of course it outpictures in a million ways,
Yeah.
or 7 billion or whatever we're at now. So just to simplify it, just learning to get in your heart would be the first thing I would work on, and then let your heart, um, yeah, let creation guide you just by asking questions. Because I know I say let your heart do it, and somebody's going to say, well, how's that? It's like
How?
I don't even know
And
what that means.
that's
I don't
such a
even know.
mind question, right?
Yeah,
How?
yeah,
What do I do?
that's it. So, but what happens is that when you're in your heart, the mind, your consciousness can only be one place. Witnessing is a huge thing. That's why Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, Buddhist meditation, being your heart, all of that is just being present in now time.
Yeah.
Because remember, memories, beliefs, it's all memory work. Beliefs are memories.
It's
They're
past.
stored in the mental body.
Yeah.
Emotional wounds. They're all like if you go to a counselor and they say, "Oh, so what happened to you, Davy or David, when you're 10 years old? Go tell me that story." So what do? I think back. I go back in time to a memory. I'm not here. But you know what? When I witness it, I'm consciously aware. It integrates the past into the now time. It's like there's an information flow. And then guess what? With all the experience you've had and the all the what you've learned, all of that, your new beliefs or whatever, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, oh, I get it now. My mother did love me. I didn't realize that, because that you had to integrate. So so talk therapy is another form. It's like time travel,
Yeah.
So, but the idea is that you can create that connection, and by just being in the heart when things come up, and going back to your heart, it's like you're doing your own self work. And
Yeah.
guess what? You don't have to go through months of one-on-one therapy work, and nothing against that. That saved my life. But, you can actually, through this connection to the heart, when you're connected to your heart, when you feel something in your body going off, immediately go
Somatically.
back to your heart,
Yeah.
somatically, that's the word. And then guess what? You don't even have to know. Your mind might say, well, there's nothing going on here. No, there is. The information is flowing, and all of a sudden you feel something let go, and because it's the information is coming from your heart. At first, you may get nothing, but keep doing it. Keep doing that, pledge allegiance to yourself. If you ask the question, put your hand in your heart and ask, okay, what is this I'm feeling? What am I, and if you don't get an answer, don't do anything. Just ask again if you want, but just leave it and wait. I say to people, don't make shit up. Don't let your mind, you know, take it and try and fix it. Just wait for the inspiration or wait. You might not need anything. Sometimes it's just the awareness and consciously being aware of what's going in your body. It's like you're collapsing time. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's gone.
Mm.
And you didn't even know you've healed it by just self-awareness and using that interconnection
Yeah.
that and you experience the miracle. And it doesn't have to be, again, we're talking about healing, the trauma, blah blah blah, that comes up. You can practice this any day. It could be, do I really feel like going to coffee with the girls tonight, after work or whatever. And then you just put your hand in your heart and say, is this what I really want to do? And then it's like, oh no, it doesn't feel right, or it
Mhm.
does feel right. And then again, it's like you're asking that question because your mind has memories of going and visiting with your girlfriends. Other times we had a great time, but maybe there were times when, oh, I shouldn't have gone. I was up too late, and I was, ah, the next day was tough at work. you know but when you're in your heart like that, it knows the right answer for you. So some people might say, well, what is this? It's you. You're asking
Mhm.
you what's right for
Mhm.
you, but you're asking a part of you that knows. I use this analogy. I know it's mostly female listeners.
Mhm.
uh, but football, like in football, they have this guy, a spotter, in the stands. And he sits with a pair of glasses. He can see the whole play developing. And he's got a microphone, and you see the coach in the sideline with the headset on. Who's he talking to? He's talking to the spotter because he sees the whole play developing. So he'll be telling him what's going on, and then he'll call the play based on that, right? What he's seen. So our higher self is like that. It's a spotter in the stand. It already knows what's best for us. Why would you not use that?
Mhm.
Insider trading. You have insider trading. It's your higher self. Why
Yeah.
would you not take time to develop it instead of trusting things outside of you? And I'm not saying, sometimes you're inspired to get the information outside of you too.
Yeah. It's not that the
But
outside is wrong. It's just when
no,
we
no,
completely bypass the inside
yes,
and we often disconnect from it where we don't even really know that that voice is there because we've
yeah,
overridden it so much. And I
yeah,
think what you're speaking of when you're, hand on the heart, checking in with yourself is
yeah,
actually opening up the lines of communication to that inner voice, even though it may be so quiet at first. I know it was for me, it was
yes,
like non
yeah,
existent, but the
yes,
act of continuing to show up for yourself.
hmm,
And I know for with autoimmune, it's often, again, like you said, the body is often the mirror. So with
yeah,
autoimmune, it's often like a rejection of self or part of self
yeah,
on some level. And so instead of bypassing or abandoning yourself, it's
yes, yes,
the radical act of actually tuning
yeah,
in again and again, even if you don't hear anything at first, even if it's uncomfortable,
yeah,
and even if you hear
yeah,
something that this part of you, meaning your mind, doesn't
hmm,
like. Because if you
yeah,
tune in using your example and you're like, okay, is it really going to serve me to go out tonight with whatever plans that I have? If you
yeah,
get a no, I need to rest.
yeah,
That's step one. Step two is then meeting the
yeah,
part of yourself that is so used to either pleasing these
yeah,
people or pushing beyond your means or
hmm,
and I think, that right there is often the medicine of being with that.
yeah,
And that's when one of those
yeah,
books might fall off the shelf and then you're like,
yes, yeah,
you might feel some things, right?
yeah, yeah,
But it's integrating those imprints in the past that said you needed to do those things, the conditions that
yes,
said this is what you need to do to be worthy, to earn love, to be safe, relationally, whatever it is.
yeah,
And you're actually, instead of abandoning yourself or rejecting
yes,
that part of you, you're actually becoming
yeah,
congruent with it. And I know for me, it's opened something within
yeah,
me where you're talking
yeah,
about the information flow. All of a sudden,
yes,
you're listening to your body instead of bypassing your body.
yes,
And it's that inner reconciliation of, I love what you're talking about in terms of a communication issue because you're actually hearing yourself for the first time. You're hearing
yeah,
that little voice in your
yeah,
heart, or
yeah,
you're hearing your body's cry for rest,
yes.
and you're opening up those lines of communication both within all the aspects of you and then all the different parts of you too.
Yeah, and I know like you're talking in terms of an understanding on a mind level a bit about
Mhm.
it. And I understand because the mind wants to know,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like when a child, you look at a child, when they're looking around and they're feeling angst or whatever, and sometimes you just go up and put their hand on them or just give them a hug, and it just resolves it in an instant. It just melts and it's gone, and they're playing, and you don't, do you sit there and try and intellectually figure out what it was? Maybe sometimes you want to talk about it or whatever, but really, it's just the loving of yourself is just it's honoring yourself, and the more you do it, it's like you're reversing, you're unraveling the process that
The
which become a
thread.
habit
Hmm.
unconscious, and you can definitely you can get help with this, but I want to give you a tool that you can do on your own. You can still do that if you want, but why not start with just loving yourself and creating that heart connection, and then you unravel, and then you're awakening this power and you're creating miracle data. That's the thing. Miracles happen. Like I could talk for 3 hours and all the miracles that have happened. We
I
just
would
moved.
love to hear,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
agree. Like start with a simple heart
yeah,
meditation, and
yeah,
even if you can't get through the whole thing, even if you can just
yeah,
do a minute or two,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
building presence and just
yeah,
you're talking about
yeah,
being with yourself,
yeah, yeah,
being
and
with
it.
what is in
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah. And it's not just, it's scientific because the heart chakra, the heart energy center, this is the seat of our soul, more or less. This is our connection to our higher self. It's a center between the upper and lower, the higher self, and our body and all of that. So when you're learning to connect with that, you're loving yourself and all of that. You're creating miracle data, and then it becomes stronger. It's so important. Like I say, it's the only thing. Now, how does that get to physical things when you're unwinding it? You don't realize, like I say, that the issue you have, with your edema or something, pancreas. Well, emotional response is that lack of joy in your life is pancreas. The sweetness in life is reduced. So if you look back emotionally in your past, you think, oh, I wasn't loved maybe the way I needed to be. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter the reason. There was no sweetness. So people develop after 50 years, unless they learn to give it to themselves and heal that, and then realize that that eventually they learn that it's present if we give it to ourselves. And then we guess what? By discovering that, taking self responsibility for those books on the shelves and the experiences that we have from them, then guess what? All of a sudden, when we heal, we attract people that all of a sudden love us. And when I say love us, they just accept who we are. They know who we are. They honor that. It's
Because we know who we are, we have
that's
accepted
it.
who
And
it's just
and
the
yeah,
reflection of
yeah.
life
And
and
because
others mirrored
yeah,
back to us.
because we know who we are, because we've been communicating in small ways, buying broccoli, or whatever it is, should I
Yeah.
work longer? And we created that pattern, and really it's just a communication pattern. The joy we feel is just a sign that you are connected. Think about that. We think of it emotionally, like, oh, joy, it's because of what I'm doing and all of that. Well, yeah, in relationships, we feel joy in a relationship. It's because we're probably with somebody that accepts us, know who we are. And then people say, well, where did the joy go 2 years later? Because Bruce Lipton does this thing, I think he wrote a book on the honeymoon stage, but it's all about that. It talks about that. The idea is that it's a resonant. Joy is a sign that we're connected with our higher self. That's what it really is. That's I'm an Aquarian, so I can be a little bit detached in my expression. but that's who I am. So I look at it energetically that really, if you don't, if I don't feel joy, then I'm not connected. When I am joy, I'm connected. So, would your goal want to be joy all the time, or 90% of the time, or even halfway there based on where you are now? It's a step.
Yeah.
So, um,
What
yeah,
you're saying is essentially joy is our natural state of being. It's
Hmm.
possible. And so if you're
Yeah,
not in that joy, I mean, sure, we have our life lessons and themes that we all have to go through, but
yeah,
if you're not in that state of joy, or call it ease, for example, um,
hmm,
there's some sort of thought, whether it's
yeah,
conscious or not, or belief system
yeah,
or something going on in the mind that's likely
yeah.
telling you something that's creating a feeling that is not joy, that there's something wrong
Exactly.
here,
Well,
or
there's something in your consciousness, and I say, as I've been working on this and clearing all my own baggage and all of that, I've had more joy. Like I said, now it's like 95% of the time. Like honestly, because I don't have that in my consciousness. Here's a good example. Like I used to be, my big thing was it injustice, right? That was one of my big things. So when I'd see like George Bush was a good, in the States and stuff, like injustice, like anything that was injustice, it just triggered me, So I was like, and then I would want to fight injustice and everything like that. And then I soon realized the injustice was in me. It wasn't them. It was the injustice. And once I healed injustice, because do you know what? I didn't stand up for myself. I was actually being George Bush with myself.
mm,
There was a part of my mind that didn't stand up for me, that didn't, and it's okay. I don't want to make it sound, we are who we are, and that's part of our experience.
it's part of the
But I
journey.
realized, yeah. And then I realized it hit me one day, oh my God, and then once I healed the injustice in me, I can listen to injustice around me. It doesn't really bother. Do I like it? No. Would I like it to be different? Yeah. But and then I heard some teacher or somebody said that the George Bushes of the world will disappear once we don't need them anymore. So remember, the outside world is a reflection, just like our body is a reflection of our consciousness. Same thing in a broader sense. And does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here just so lit up by your words because I'm like, yes, yes, yes. You had that moment where you're like, holy shit, I'm the one.
Yeah.
It's confronting because you're like, okay, now I have to take responsibility for
Yeah.
the shit
Yeah.
within me. But it's also, and going back to the piece around dis-ease, as much as that can be like, how would I have created this? And that's not
Yeah.
invalidating any of the suffering. If you've
No.
created it, you have the power to shift it and change it. And it's
Yeah.
only when we are willing to see
Yeah.
our own reflection in what it is that's going on that we
Yeah.
can shift it. Because how can you shift something that you have no power over? If
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
responsibility over it, you have power. And
So,
what you're saying is your life is a reflection of your own inner
yeah.
perspective and lensing and self,
Yes.
really,
Yeah.
your
And
relationship with self.
so think about this, that, my mind wants to go, and it did this. It wants to know why. It wants to know why it was like that. Like, and I do work with people that it's like they want, first they find out why, and then they might see there's a villain and the victim. I'm the victim and they're the perpetrator. And I'm not invalidating that shit happened, and I experienced trauma. Yeah, that you did. I've reached a point now where it really doesn't matter why. If you can let go, because I have people that I know, and even myself, there's certain aspects through my growth where I wouldn't heal until I wanted to know why.
Yeah.
People might want retribution for the suffering they've had. They're projected outwardly, and it's okay. That's a human experience. But do you really need to know why? Can you just let go? Can you trust that isn't the process of isn't the process to actually let go and heal? And
Yeah.
remember, I said Dispenza did this study. He said that people have miraculous healing from serious, like life-threatening illnesses when they let go. Once they realized they were going to die, and there's nothing they could do, their mind let go. Oh, all of a sudden, healing improved because the mind was hanging on to it and wouldn't allow the process to happen. So
Do you feel like that's an ability that we have to let go, or do you feel like that's like a, because what you're talking about here, it's like in my mind, the way it's making sense is like it's like this journey from
yeah,
fear to trust. Because when we're in a
yeah,
state of fear, where we don't
yeah,
feel safe for whatever reason,
yeah,
that's where we try to control, and our mind tries to wrap its way around it so that we can try to have,
yeah,
because we don't feel safe. So it's like, but I need to
yeah,
know so that I can
yeah,
feel safe. So the
yeah,
journey to trust and that surrender piece, do you feel
yeah.
like that's a choice, or do you feel like that's some sort of culmination of intelligence that kind of creates the perfect conditions so that we essentially,
Yeah,
it's like that breaking open
yeah.
piece? What do you think
Yeah,
that is?
the conditions are always present. They morph and change based on our personal choices. So the ability to heal yourself in an instant is theoretically there. You know, I used to have this argument with a friend early on that he didn't believe that, and I just knew it. But of
Yeah.
course, I wasn't ready. I didn't even do that myself. So, you
How
know,
do you how do you let go if someone's
so
listening and they're like,
yeah,
okay, I
yeah.
want to let go. I'm ready to let go.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you
And you know, of
say?
course, yeah. So this is where it all comes back to the heart. See, the mind needs to know.
Hmm.
So, but we need to honor the mind sometimes. You know, some of
Yeah.
us are going to be like, okay, I get it. I'll let go and they'll let go. But even if you want to let go, you know, it'll be like, no, no, the mind remember, it's the unconscious mind. It's not the conscious mind can do what it wants. But if it's in the unconscious, it's never going to happen. You have to, you have to access the unconscious at one point,
Yeah.
but you know, the thing is that if you people are familiar with Ho'oponopono, are you
Yeah.
familiar with
I
Ho'oponopono?
am. Yeah.
Thank you, I love you, you know, forgive me and all that.
I'm
So
sorry. Please
I'm
forgive me.
sorry,
Thank you.
please,
I love you. Yeah.
love you. Yeah. So that's just a process. You know, it's a really interesting. You know, if you want to explore it, if you're drawn to it, it's great. Dr. Lin is the main teacher, the modern teacher in that. But they talk about this. It's only the superconscious or the your higher self that can. It has the awareness to surrender and to heal, right? Which is the letting go.
Hmm.
You can't heal with the lower self or the mind. It doesn't have the power. Actually, the mind doesn't have any power actually of creation. It's only, that's why they call it the creator. The power of creation that we're all part of basically is what creates everything, and it uncreates as well. It doesn't just create, it uncreates. So the idea of getting in touch with that inner self, connecting that's again, we're coming back to the same thing again. You know, your mind needs to know, okay, what do I need? What do I need? This is the mind. Oh, what I need to do,
Hmm.
let go. Sorry,
It's
you
like
know,
I think for
I
me,
can,
it's like
yeah, yeah,
I feel you can't necessarily think and feel at the same time. And so
yeah,
to be
exactly.
thinking is to not be letting go because you're thinking.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
it's a matter of, like you're saying, descending into the heart. So
yeah,
just literally notice and witness and observe what you're feeling in your body in this moment in a
yeah,
way that is a
yeah,
form of letting go.
yes,
It's just witness and be
yeah.
with.
So even that here, I'll give you a little thing that it's a method I've used in sessions and stuff. Is just when you feel it in your body somewhere, you just put your hand in your heart and bring your heart awareness to that space, like you're bringing like a light, like a spotlight of energy from their heart to that space, and just be there and let it light up, like you're lighting up that space, and even just say, what do you need? Is there something that you need here, or you know, and or just be, or you know what, yeah, that's engaging the mind to do something. Just let that spotlight, just be aware and be present and feel what you're feeling, even acknowledge what you're feeling. You don't need, there's nothing you need to do than that, because the heart energy will do the work. And you know, that's just, it can be as simple as that, you know, as you go through about your day. Now, is it always going to be that simple? No, maybe sometimes you're going to need help with it, like it's not, you know, or maybe it's just going to be you know, it's going to resolve it and it's going to come back again and again, you know. So you know, it's kind of like you'll just know that, oh, maybe I need to find somebody to help. There's something unconscious that my protection system will not allow me to access on my own. So
And
um,
speaking to that, like I know that that's been the case for me as much as I've gone through much of my journey. You know, I'm a big student of this work as well, so it's like I school myself like over and over again. And of
yeah,
course I feel that life brings us into contact with the very people that may be carrying the same textbooks as we circled
yeah,
back to from the beginning,
yeah,
who can maybe
yeah,
show, oh, look at this line right there in your textbook. Or our nervous system is always reading others' nervous system, like
yes,
subconsciously. And so
yeah,
there may be protection aspects of self that
yeah, Yeah.
Okay, I don't feel safe going there on my own. However, if I'm in the presence, whether that's virtually or in person, of another safe nervous system, they've got
Yeah.
me so that protection piece can feel satisfied.
Yes.
I'm now safe, so now I can go in and do that thing.
And do the work with them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's you know, again, it's all unique to each of us.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
we look outside of ourselves in books and you know, whatever it is, because we want to solve a problem. The problem is us. The
Yeah.
problem is, when I say it's us,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always think of the joke when someone says, you know, this is happening in my life, and then one of my teachers said, "Do you ever think about what's the common denominator and all of that? You." You know,
Yeah. It's
so
like Taylor Swift said.
you're always present in all of this stuff in this
Yeah.
movie that's playing out, you know.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to sound, you know, judgment, but it's true, you know. So and then
And
the
it's
quick
not, I think with you, like it's not coming from a place of judgment or
oh,
pointing the finger. It's because
oh,
you have had to look at yourself, and I've done the same, where we've seen that we are the common denominator in our
yeah,
own shit.
yeah,
And so it's from that very humbled place
yeah,
of deep compassion and reverence for the journey that,
yeah,
hey, yeah, this is going on. And hey, you also have the power to shift that if you so
yeah,
choose to meet
yeah.
that aspect of yourself.
And don't be afraid to say I don't know.
I don't know how, or I
I
need
don't
help.
know how. Thank you. Bring
Yeah.
the person, creation. Bring the whatever I need. Bring the person, bring the
Yeah.
situation, bring the awareness, whatever it is, you know, could be a movie you watch on TV in the next 10 minutes that's going to make you emotional, and you're going to release something and you think, oh, what was that? You
Yeah.
know, and you're going to feel, oh my God, that was good. Creation's always trying to heal you. It's always trying to balance. When there's imbalance, balance, imbalance, balance, you know, it's science, you
Yeah.
know, it's all science too. So, you know, so again, connecting to the master within you, um,
Yeah.
again, that's yeah, again, we're coming back to that because that'll heal you. It's just, you know, you know, our talking has just been going through the different processes and
Yeah. It's
healing
getting the
captive.
mind on board in a way. It's
Absolutely.
opening, it's
Yeah.
opening to the belief of what's possible
Yeah.
for you.
Yes.
And I feel our soul, intelligence, creation,
Yeah.
intuition, whatever you want to call it, speaks
Yeah.
to us in those little nudges, and they don't always make sense to the mind. Maybe it's, oh,
Yeah.
I want to watch this movie. Oh, I really feel like going there. Oh, I feel really curious to try this new thing. Listen to those nudges,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense in the moment. And
Yeah.
like we
Yeah.
said, start out with the smaller little ones that are
Yeah.
more play and
Yeah.
trivial.
And if it doesn't work, like, you know, your mind might say, oh, that's a bunch of BS, you know. Don't just do it, keep doing it. You might fail, but the thing is that you're not creating trauma on yourself where it's too important. And then all of a sudden you got miracle data. Oh my God, this works. Like I could tell you, honestly, I was doing Ho'oponopono and some work with that. Here's a simple phrase I got from, I can't remember. I need to say her name, but she does the Mandela effect. She's a physicist from California. I can't remember her name now, but she has a phrase where it's like, how good can it get? You know, how good can life get? And then we included it with another modality that uses what else is possible, because they're asking questions of creation. So you're open, you're surrendering to what's possible, you know, and that's all you need to do. Like I could tell you the abundant stuff that's happened. Like just literally, we were started doing this again. My wife Donna and I, and all of a sudden, there were like four things monetarily that came within a week that we had no idea, or two of them we had no idea. The other one just it was more about we knew it was coming, but it came exactly the day after started this, and it was like so it's like the Matrix. Do you believe me now, Trinity?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know that do you believe that creation takes care of us? So for me, a simple way of I've taken the idea of the secret and you create your reality. I because of my experience has showed me that I am the receiver. I don't need to be the creator. I don't need to put in the effort. I can say, the creation looks after me. That's all I say now.
Yeah.
Creation looks after because you can create your reality and you can decide what you want and you can create it. But is it you could it be even better?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you not let the master of you that knows exactly what the future's coming? You could be picking up pieces that all fit together 20 years from now in a specific puzzle, but
Yeah.
you could, and it's okay. Creation will deal with that. If you take something and manipulate it and create something that isn't necessarily the easiest, and most joyful way to it, that if you listen to your inner self and took the time or could,
Hmm.
um, that all of a sudden, okay, it'll take a tangent. You're going to go over here for a while. Then, oh, 10, 2 years later, you'll be back on this timeline or whatever. So yeah, so it's interesting.
So I love what you're saying here because when you think that you are going to be creating your reality,
Yeah,
I feel that almost can be another form of control because,
yeah,
again, you think that you know better than God, than creation or higher intelligence what it is that you need. And that's not to say that you don't know what you need or want.
yeah,
You can have
yeah,
intentions and things that you think that you
yeah,
want.
yeah,
However, the more that I've surrendered to
yeah,
allow that very question has been the
yeah,
question of the year for me. Show me how good it can get. How good
yeah,
can it get, and
yeah.
what
What
else is
else is
possible?
possible? Yeah,
The miracles beyond my what I could
yeah,
have consciously tried to create as a
oh,
creator.
yeah, yeah,
Because you're
oh,
still limited by your mind and
yeah.
what your
You're,
mind can perceive as possible.
yeah, you're in time. We're in time and space when we're in our mind. You
Hmm.
know, and our heart is beyond time and space. It's
Yeah.
a quantum, and even if you go to Heart Math, is a really great site. Are you familiar with Heart Math? Have you heard?
No.
Oh, you never?
No.
Oh, wow! It's actually
Please
science around
share.
the heart.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just heartmath.org, I think, or something like that. If you
Okay.
Google.
And what's the basic,
Um,
what do they
Basically, they,
share?
they have well, they do heart coherence. They have monitors you can get, and so it'll train you to be in heart coherence using. They have methods and things like that.
Wow.
Similar to the heart method that in the meditation I'm
Yeah.
going to share. But because of science, they've studied it, and it's so fascinating. The power of the heart. That the heart is actually energetically the most powerful
Yeah.
energy center, like by far, not even close. The mind, not even close.
Yeah.
So the power of the heart is there. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I got lost. Where were we? What were we
No, no,
talking
that's
about?
okay. We were talking
Heart.
about what even when we think we can create,
Oh yeah, yeah,
we don't, we're
yeah,
still limited by the mind.
yes,
So when you're tuning into
yeah,
the heart and
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah,
opening to the possibility of
yeah,
how good can this get? Show me
yeah,
what's possible for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Of course, sometimes we have to appease the mind, like we said,
yeah,
and kind of get the mind on
yeah,
board a little bit to
yeah,
open to
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But even knowing that even that potential is limited,
yeah,
still based
yeah. So the
relative to what's possible.
Yeah, so you've experienced all these miracles.
Hmm.
So your mind is like blowing. You know why they say my mind is blowing? Because it's the beliefs are blowing. You've expanded the mind, and that's really what a lot of books like we used to read like back when in the day there were new age books and like spiritual healing books coming out like weekly, like we were like devouring them, because we were expanding our mind. I remember one, it was a book where at the end of it they said everything in this book could not be true. And it says, but it doesn't really matter. The reason we wrote this book to share it was to expand your mind. In
Yeah,
other words, to blow your mind. So what you're doing, the process is the miracles blow your mind. So you expand and destroy belief systems just by
yeah,
experiencing these miracles. And then eventually your mind says, okay, I get it. We're safe now. You take over. And then it just
yeah.
happens. And then eventually, it doesn't mean to say I still don't have fear. I still get my mind, but I don't listen to it, because I just don't, and the
It's
odd
not the
time,
seed anymore. It's not the driver
no,
anymore as much.
yeah.
So, yeah,
So again, you're just creating this new way of being. That's really what
yeah.
we're doing here. And then, that's the power.
Just getting the mind around it a little bit to open up to the
Yeah,
belief of what's
yeah,
possible. And
yeah,
um I hope that something in this conversation has, whether
yeah,
it's blown your mind or expanded your mind a little bit or planted a little seed. Because I was speaking to someone yesterday who, she has a lot more awareness now around what was going on in her body. She has a fibromyalgia and a chronic fatigue diagnosis, and she said that about 10 years ago she had gone to some sort of body worker and they had said to her, you've got a lot of stored emotion in your lower body. And
mhm,
she thought he was a
yeah,
kook. Like she thought he was nuts and never went back.
yeah,
Because our mind can only take in so much at any one given point in
yes,
time.
yeah,
Because again, it will blow your mind. It
yeah,
should blow your
yeah,
mind. You want it to
yeah,
blow your mind.
exactly.
But then once you don't ever underestimate the power of a seed planted, because now
Yes.
it can, you water that seed, you expand the potential of, okay, well, what if I do have that there?
Yeah,
Okay, well,
yeah,
show me how
yeah,
to, what do I do with that, you know?
yeah, yeah.
I would love for you to share. You've been doing this work for a long time, and so I'm so grateful for all of your shared wisdom and perspective.
My
What are
pleasure.
some of the what are some of the most profound physical ailments that you've seen people heal?
Um, yeah, physical. So recently I worked with someone with stage 4 cancer. And, I'm not going to say that what I worked with them was the thing. I know it's everything that the person does. That's where conventional medicine does exist because there's a purpose for it, or else it wouldn't exist. So, but I found that when he worked with me, anyways, we worked on energy work, like long distance attunements I worked with, and that work with the whatever it was we were working at the time, it's unique to the person. And, I think within about 2.5 months, his testing of the levels, like just was, the doctor couldn't believe it. He did have conventional stuff with it too, so I'm sure it's all part of it. So I found that probably, less sort of dramatic. I started to work some body level work. We were working on cell memory, and one of the first people I worked with, she had like pain, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like 9.5 all the time. And basically, the doctor said, "I'm sorry, we tried everything. You'll just have to be on meds the rest of your life." And she didn't want to accept that. So, we worked on, clearing cell memory in the body, and it just, again, it was just with awareness and getting in touch with the body, like I say, talk to your body and everything, and find out, where in the body, and then, bringing the heart awareness to that part of your body, and allowing the superconscious to shift things. And then so anyways, about 3 days later, she contacted me and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. The pain's gone to like about 2." And it had been about 6 years that she'd been living that way. So I felt really like, oh, totally blessed that, the method that I was been given to use could have that effect on people. Like that's really what I want when I work with people. So, but again, it's the same, the method I use, it's great, it's specific, but it's the same thing. It's based on the power of the heart.
Yeah,
It's based on um, a miracle. That's where miracles really exist.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. Like I work on the mental body level. You'll have people that are like, oh, I love working long time, like a fair amount of time with certain people now and again. And then when they came to me, they were so in their head, and they couldn't even barely get through the meditation. That we would use muscle testing. Their muscle testing didn't work because their mind was controlling it. It was too, they weren't in their body actually. That's the reality with their energy. So that, how do you muscle test when there's no energy, or
yeah,
they're up here?
yeah.
So working with them over time and releasing, and different levels, the mind, the heart, and the body, um, memories. Then now I just had a session with her the other day, and it was just like all of a sudden I became aware of how she is now, and it was like I just had to tell her. I said, you are a completely different person
Mhm.
now, but it's all the work, it's all that aware, committing to it, and
And
then
I
being
think that
open.
that's the piece
You
that's
know,
there is the
yeah,
commitment, the
it
openness,
is.
and sometimes
Yeah,
it does have to get loud enough to have the
yeah,
motivation to go there. But
yeah,
as you're speaking, like what was coming into my awareness is, okay, so if you've received a diagnosis, whatever it might be,
yeah,
to believe that you are going to have to live with that the rest of your life is
yeah,
believing in something you don't necessarily know to be true.
yeah,
Believing in your healing or the possibility of healing is also believing in something that you don't necessarily
yeah.
know to be true, meaning you can't prove either in this very moment.
No,
So,
no.
why not even just consider the other side and start looking
Yeah.
for evidence or stories or
What's
whatever it is to get your mind around the possibility of, maybe there's something I can do here to shift this. And whether that's physical, or whether that's an emotional or mental discomfort that you have going on in your life, it's really just an opening. It's the
Yeah.
asking the questions.
What what else is possible?
Yeah,
Like, how good can it get? What else is possible? You have a right knee that's been bothering you and you're on meds and you can't walk, love your knee and say, creation, how good can it get? What else is possible? It's just an openness for it to be better. That there's a remember this creation is being recreated. Like every 7 years, all our cells are recreated.
regenerate.
Yeah. So why not? Why not the miracle? What if it's possible?
Yeah,
I like when I work with this person that had cancer, early on I want people to get better. We don't know what the experience is about on a soul level. I just work with the person.
hmm,
I have no goal. I just work with them in terms of working with the heart and getting them in
yeah,
touch. And then some people it's going to maybe they could have a miracle. Other people it's it may not be as dramatic, but it's
yeah.
still going to be maybe the life experience was about them loving themselves, and maybe that's why they're going through it regardless of anything else. How long they live, how because ultimately when you reach if you can get to the point of loving yourself, that's what it's really about, is because you're connecting with the truth of who you are. And then once you do that, then like I say, then healing comes from that awareness, through information and energy flow. Yeah, there's how's that going to be in a physical way? It could be you inspiring going to the right treatment at the
Hmm,
right time, you know,
hmm.
and it could be conventional, like I
Yeah,
say, sometimes sometimes it's whatever. It really doesn't matter if you can trust your heart and then just follow it. You
yeah.
know, that's really where the gifts. That's where healing resides. And then the nice thing is when you're healed, all of a sudden again, when you're healed, you have a resonance within you, like homeostasis, right? They call it in a physical way, but it's not just that; it's on all levels. So all of a sudden, you'll start. This is now we're back to the secret. We attract. We're always receiving
Mm.
what our consciousness holds. So if we healed all that, so our desires in our heart, when you feel a desire, it comes in the heart. Generally. So those heart desires you'll attract, you become a magnet. And this is where if you heart math, it talks about that it's like a energy magnet. So we attract the reality that we want, the people in our lives. The right person arrives. Instead of the same person, the over and over relationship. Jesus are just like the last person. How come I left them and they're just like it? Why do I attract? Because of the consciousness. Once you clear it, and all of a sudden someone completely new that is a resonant with who you are, that like attracts like, as in
Yeah,
homeopathy,
yeah.
right? We're energy, and so this is where responsibility comes from, because you realize, okay, there's something that's not me. And think about it. We don't want to associate with our illness. It's not me. It's just, and in fact, you know, when I have ADD, right? See, I don't even say that anymore. It helped me at the time realize and take away self-judgment because of the way I
Because it
was.
wasn't
I,
you.
it wasn't me. It's just the way I am, and whatever, so I recognize it. Like sometimes I forget. My wife will say, "You forget you have ADD," and I say, "Well, but I stay away from labels because yeah, I had to be careful. I don't want to use it as a crutch, you
It can
know.
become a part of your identification,
Exactly.
your
Yeah,
identity, or an attachment.
yeah.
Yeah,
But it can become a step up, like an understanding of, okay, this is who I am. This is why I am, but it's not the true answer. And in fact, it really doesn't matter. It's just an outpicturing that's not you. It's just, but you're labeling it so the mind can understand it. So you can maybe then take the next step of healing. And then eventually you'll just feel good and you'll forget, oh, was that ADD I actually have? I don't think, I barely ever say it, you
mm.
know. But
It's like a delayering healing.
yeah, exactly.
It's like
Yeah,
what I was hearing from you. You start working with someone where they're at, and
yeah,
it's what it really is healing. I think it's meeting yourself where you're at
yes.
and slowly delayering that which is not you. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And for the mind is to say, I love you.
yeah,
It's so important, mirror work. Look at
yeah,
yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. First, you might can't even look at myself. You know what I mean? Or whatever. Doesn't you don't get the feeling of it. It's just, just take the action to do that. And then, I say with your hand in your heart, it's really important. Like I pledge allegiance to you. I find myself, I'll just put my hand in my heart. And because I need that. I just need that connection to and I'll find myself talking. I feel like a public speaker from the 1700s, we the people of the United States, or,
Yeah.
but that's really what it is. And so your mind doesn't need to know. It's just the more you can get in the heart and, you know, then you can't be in the mind at the same time when you're in the heart. Like you were saying,
Yeah.
very true. Because we only have one consciousness, a
Yeah.
point of reference. We can only focus on one thing at a time. We think we multitask. Well, the subconscious can multitask, but our conscious awareness points the flashlight of where we are. So,
Yeah.
if you can be present, that's where change happens in the now time. If you're living
Yeah.
in the past, you're actually living in the past. You're actually, you could be playing at a program, genetic program through, your mother's ancestor or something. I know that might be a little stretch for some people, but
Hmm.
we have, genetic epigenetics and stuff is proving that people have the same desires for food, that they don't really like it, but they have this desire, and it's like, oh, my grandmother had that desire, and there's other, sciences kind of proving that
Yeah.
uh,
We
in
don't
different.
only inherit physical traits. Let's just say that.
No,
There's a lot of
exactly. That's our
information in
curriculum.
our DNA, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's linked through
yeah,
the
yeah,
akashics, our soul
yeah,
blueprint, whatever you want to call
yeah,
it, all
yeah,
of it.
yeah. So if we can become like children, like, some famous guy in a big book talked about becoming like children. Again, that was our first teacher. That's a gift she did. Like me and Donna were so serious, we still can be, but at times. But they taught us about play. She taught us that's a gift, wonderful gift she had. We become like children again, and opens the kingdom of heaven. What it
Mm.
means, the kingdom of heaven is your heart. It just gets you in touch with your heart, where joy and play and all of that. And life is serious because you're living in your gut. You're living in fight or flight response. You're living in seriousness because you're told, you know, oh, you're not allowed to do this or some, whatever we were taught, and that's no
Quiet
judge. Just
down. It's too You're too loud. Like even the joy
exactly,
can be. We were told to turn
exactly.
down the joy. So
Exactly. Yeah. Or, it's, oh, you're not allowed to have fun and laugh because your grandmother passed away. Why not? It's different now. Of course, it's nice. People have celebrations of death. Hey,
yeah,
that's a shift in consciousness.
yeah,
Before you weren't allowed to, oh, you got to be somber. You're not allowed to, you could, and honestly, once you pick up a joy is a vibration of who you are. Think of yourself as you're a vehicle for bringing healing to other people.
mm,
If you find the joy and can be able to be an expression of it, you become a homeopathic healing tool for everybody you meet, whether you know them or not, because you're a vibrational state. People are attracted to you. Uh, and because they're attracted to that, they want that vibrational state,
yeah,
you know. And it's not conscious, it's just, and you'll just find then all of a sudden it's like you're calling out the joy in them. It's there, and
yeah.
then once they experience this, they want to be around you. Like who wants to be around a negative? We all talk about it. Oh, I can't hate being around Bob, And it's nothing against Bob. Bob's win when he's in, but you just know that it doesn't. I don't get a lift. I'm like uplifted by
Mm.
him. So what do you call it? Anyway, speakers that are inspirational speakers because again they bring the vibration up because that's where people are looking for themselves.
Whether
That's
they
where
know it or not, whether they
we're
know it or
always
not.
looking for
Yeah,
home,
yeah, yeah,
which is home is here,
yeah. And they
and
say all paths
yeah,
lead home. It's just working with what is. And I have
yeah,
one more question for you.
okay, sure,
And also what was sticking in my mind, just to sum up this piece around, asking the questions, opening for help, and not needing to know the answers. You don't need to know how to get there, even if, show me,
yeah,
please help, whatever it is, or what's possible with this. You don't need to know
yeah,
the answers, and in fact sometimes trying to know the answer is going to limit you. So just asking without needing to know how it happens. And I think you have to believe it or hold the smallest seed of
Yeah.
belief in order for, if you believe it, if you can envision it, it can be possible.
Yeah. So here's an asterisk. I just interrupt you because I'm sure I would think this, and I'm sure
Mhm,
some of you are. It's like, oh, I'll ask for what the joy.
mhm.
But you have to realize that sometimes the joy is the process of healing. You're not going to reach the joy till you feel the stuff that doesn't feel so good or the resistance or the suffering that's coming up. Now, do you know the nice thing is? You can be a witness of it. So just become a witness, acknowledge that you're feeling it without owning it. Say, okay, I feel this suffering in my right hip. The pain comes up again. It's just memories. There's memories somewhere. You don't need to know what they are.
Mhm.
It doesn't really matter. Just, put your hand and bring that awareness of the heart to that area and, or whatever it might be. But, of course, I remember doing affirmations and I feel love. I feel love. That was a big thing back in the 60s or late 60s, 70s.
It
You
still
know,
is. It still can
and
be.
still, and they
Yeah.
were, because you know what they do? They force up everything that's not. So people think that at first you're like, oh, I feel this joy. This is great. Oh, this really works. And then all of a sudden they wake up one morning and it's like they're twice as bad as they were before they started because it forces up that everything that's not. And that's the
Yeah.
gift, is it to say, but if you stay in the heart, you know the truth of yourself and you stay detached from what's there and
The
understand that
stories.
you don't have to relive it again. You don't have to re-experience. Like, I'm not saying anything. If you have emotion, that's fine, but there's no need to fully re-experience. Be a witness of it. And then, because sometimes people will get stuck in the emotion and they can't fully process it because they're back there experiencing.
They're in the story. So oftentimes
Yeah,
one piece that you've said is
right. Yeah,
when you're feeling the somatic sensation in your
right.
body, you're
Yeah,
witnessing what is there in the present moment.
right.
As soon as you, and I am a huge supporter of feeling what needs to be felt
Yeah,
and
yeah,
being with what needs
yeah,
to
yeah.
be felt. But when
Right.
you get into the deep emotion or where you get stuck there is
Yeah.
oftentimes because you are in the story.
Yes.
And I think sometimes the mind gets somewhat involved there
Yeah.
too, because
When
you're making it mean
you're out of the
something.
heart. See,
Yeah,
as
you're
soon as you
making it
step in
mean
the
something.
story, you're in the past, and it can't be resolved
Mm.
because I shouldn't say that. You can go through it emotional. I shouldn't say that. You can fully experience it again to let go of it. Like that was a method of emotional healing that we were taught. But people stopped coming because nobody wanted to feel those deep emotions.
Mm.
So right, of course, I didn't want to either. So,
And
but
it can re-traumatize, right? Like
yeah,
when you
I
see
mean,
these
you can.
big,
That's the only downside of that method, completely feeling it. You don't have to, but be a witness of it. It's the same thing. You're witnessing the past leave your body or leave your consciousness. And it's stuck there. It's just the
Mhm.
past stuck. You weren't, when you were 14 years old, you couldn't process whatever the hell was going on in your life at that moment for whatever, it doesn't matter what it was. There's no need the whole point is to finish it.
Yeah,
So by witnessing it and feeling it and having an awareness of it, and it leaves your body, you ask the higher self to just witness this energy leaving the body or finish or whatever language you want to use. And you just witness that and you feel it move through. It's like you're finished it. And
yeah.
see, the only reason that you're even healing it is because it was never fully experienced. It's stuck,
That's what
so
trauma is, right? It doesn't need to
yeah,
be some big thing. It's just
because
your
yeah,
system has not been able to fully
for
process and
whatever reason.
metabolize that energy.
Yeah, you didn't have, it was too traumatic at the time. Your body separated from the experience. You didn't have an intellect. You were too young, so you didn't even you didn't know how to process it. So it's just stuck. That's why a lot of the work we do with people is actually when we were younger,
Mm.
because we couldn't. As we're older,
It's
we
stuck.
could,
Yeah.
yeah, we can process things. Maybe we learn how to do that.
Mm.
So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So there was something I wanted to. I'll let
Let
that
me know
go.
if it comes up. Here I had said,
Sure.
oh, I have one last question for you. And then we jumped into this other lovely
Yeah.
tangent. My question for you is at this point in this period of time in our collective evolution, there's a lot coming up for a lot of people. What is
Yeah.
your perception around that and what is coming up and why? And what do you see
Yeah.
around that?
Yeah. It seems to be that healing has always been personal. There's always been healing.
Mm.
Whether you did it or not, the body's always trying to heal itself. But
Mhm.
now everything's happening so much quicker. There's an increase of energy frequency of energy. That's why healing that I did when I was 80, or I was 80, when 87, the methods we used were like, chopping wood, to get people to heal,
Yeah.
to trust and all of that. It took a long time. And the methods were very long and intense. And then eventually it's like, more memories being released and released. So COVID is actually, like, I always talk about COVID as like a gift, because I think it's the body trying to heal. Remember, the body can be the earth, can be our
Hmm.
whole experience here. So, creation's going to use whatever it needs to wake us up to heal. So there's a collective healing right now that's happening. So I'm not sure, people talk about, we're entering a new earth, and, we're evolving, there change, and can't think of the other terms, but really, it's just there's like a cycle of consciousness of, back in the day, they used to call it, it was about 21,000 years. Yeah, 25,000 year cycle, that there's like a cycle of consciousness that works through, and we're at the end of it, the Mayan cycle. That's some people. So it's all of that is just, indigenous people talking about this cycle. So we're finishing, just like we're finishing in our healing. It's like collectively we're finishing now. So that's why things are happening on a broad scale. So there's all these emotions and stuff that's being forced up, because it's time to, it's almost like, okay, we've had choice to do it in our own time. Now it's being forced to do it. So
Yeah.
it's like all this stuff is coming out, and you understand we don't feel safe. Like there's nothing. It's like all the things we trusted, government, the system.
Many
Geez, I might lose my
systems.
job, money
Yeah.
system. Everything is collapsing, and of course, what does it engage? Our fight or flight. So all of the programming that's around fight or flight and all of that, is all our programming is being forced to the surface. So that's where illness is coming up, because some people, it's reached the level of the body. So all of a sudden, all these illnesses are coming up. And COVID, what's that related to? All the heart issues, circulation, people dying of heart attacks and all. It's the heart opening.
Mm.
The heart is opening, so it's affecting people, of course, but we're again, it's like a mechanism of awakening. And
Yeah.
for us, it's a major clearing that's happened on a collective sense. But of course, I don't work in the collective sense. That's just information.
Mm.
I work with people one on one, and
Mm.
the tools, hopefully, and what we talked about today can help people navigate that. So, see, if you become connected to the heart, this is a practical view of things, is that you become the center of the hurricane, the hurricane going on around you, and it doesn't even affect you,
You're in the eye of the
or
storm.
does
It's
it?
like it's
You're
where
in
it's
the
still.
eye.
Yeah.
It is. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that, you hate to see people going through it. Like, I'm compassionate, but I
Mm.
realize, because I went through my own stuff. I know I have my own journey. Everybody has their own journey,
And there's
and
gifts in those journeys, right? So
there is,
people can have them. Yeah.
exactly, and it's their journey. They, you know, it's their journey and their process. So, um, so anyways, again, pointing back to the heart work, it allows you to, be, see, if you raise, by healing, again, you're raising your vibration, you're raising your awareness, you're becoming connected to the higher self. Why are there quantum computers? Why is there the internet? It's an outpicturing of us. The internet's an outpicturing,
Mm.
so we can see it and
And
experience the
AI,
truth
right?
of
Artificial
AI. It's the
intelligence.
same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just a mirror of who we are. We don't need the idea of we're going to create technology and we're all going to go in this body and all of that. Yeah, maybe we will. I don't know. But really, we already have that. It's just not awakened.
Mm.
If we can connect to our heart, we don't realize the abilities that we have, that exist within us. But we have to go through the clearing to get there. So, so just think of it that you're just in a process,
Yeah.
and of awakening to who you are, and that's called healing here.
Yeah.
You know,
It's what we
yeah,
call healing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And
Oh, awesome.
there's been so many nuggets of wisdom here that I'm sure I'm sure there's so many that will take value from this, connect dots, have new levels of awareness, or at least seeds planted from this. And for those listening, if someone was interested in your work, can you share some of your offerings and how someone might be able to get a hold of you and get into your
Sure.
world?
Certainly. So I work with people. I'm an intuitive first. So when you come, I'm clairaudient. So basically, I have no idea what we're going to do until we get together and you talk to me, and you'll just tell me what you need generally, or where, or your body will if you've got certain responses. So we can work on the mind level. So I do believe work with people, mind level beliefs. I can do heart level, which is about emotional body wounds. So, and I have a method to go through your whole life to resolve those, Again, then the next level I work on is the physical, which is again more about, the body that trauma that's stored in the body level. Again, just like with homeopathic medicine, you have to treat the illness at the frequency of where it resides. So you get a medicine that vibrates at this frequency, and then it releases it from the body. So same idea is that, depending on where you're at, I'm sort of guided, and we use muscle testing in that. So I work with people, and the goal for me is to work through all these levels over a process where you can free the heart and, and again, build that connection like, we talked about the importance of that. And then, homeostasis. And it's not just in the physical body, it's on all levels. So the idea of, I am for me, I'm the reflection of the experience because I've gone through it myself. So I understand it because I've experienced. Of course, you're going to have your own flavor of it, but it allows me to gain an understanding of what the person's going through that I'm working with, and then there's a teaching aspect to it as well, like I'm doing here. I'll be teaching, just sharing information that'll be for your mind, because your
Mm.
mind is part of if your mind doesn't believe it, doesn't trust it, doesn't mean to say you're not going to get there. It just could take longer. So anyways, I work through all those levels. So the goal is to get you to experience the joy of life, which is all that's all we want. Like it, you know, that's really all we want in relationships, everything. So that's sort of the end. When people start feeling that, that I can tell I'm nearing the end of working with them. So, and yeah, so um, yeah, so like I say, I work. I've got a website. Were you going to put the website on?
We'll put the website. It's www.transformativebeliefwork.com. Is that correct? Yeah,
Yes.
we'll link it up too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And so there's a contact from there. It's just info@transformativebeliefwork.com is the email address. If you have any questions, I do like a discovery call, like a free discovery call, so we can talk. Because I know for me, I would never go to a healer or someone that's going to help me with that without meeting them and feeling their energy. So,
Yeah.
I'm certainly open with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically what I do, and help people in their own unique way. I know, and like I say, I'll give you the link to download that the heart meditation.
Yeah, I highly suggest checking it out. It's powerful, it's beautiful, and it can be a work in process too
Yeah,
if it takes some time
yeah.
to drop
So
in.
So I forgot one more thing about that, the meditation. Because some people it's like, oh, I got to meditate every day. Like, oh, I don't have time. So the meditation is very short. It's usually like 12 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is that after you've done it a number of times, your subconscious knows how to do it. So it's a heart expansion. You're expanding your energy
Yeah.
out your heart, creating like a safe bubble. So all of a sudden your body feels safe. So it can do the processing without the influence of the outside world as much. So the idea that once you've got it down, if you feel something, you want that, you want to connect again, you could feel off or something's throwing you off. Instead of meditating, you'll just breathe and expand your energy. Like I'll be at the grocery store, and somebody will all of a sudden get maybe angry at their child or something in the store, and I can feel that energy, because, and when you go through this process, you become more sensitive, to the energy around you in the world.
Yeah.
So I'll just breathe, and then all of a sudden, guess what? It just magically it expands because it's in my subconscious. I never have to
Yeah.
actually do the meditation.
It's like a muscle. You build up
Yeah,
the
yeah,
memory, the attunement to it, and all of a sudden
yeah,
you can
yeah,
connect to it. You can connect and drop into
exactly.
that state. Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about having to meditate every day of the rest of your life. So
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so
Okay.
much. And what I
You're
love
welcome.
about your
Thank
work,
you for
David,
inviting.
is yeah, you're so embodied in what you do. You're speaking to like soul level and these very far out perspectives, but you're so grounded and down to earth in it, and looking at all the
Good.
different levels and layers
Yeah.
of the person and the whole person and their being. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm so glad that we've crossed paths and
Yes. Totally. Yeah. Thank you for
yeah,
inviting me, and and thank you for the feedback because I don't know how grounded it is. I feel grounded, but because I want people to understand that it's even though it is a little esoteric for some,
yeah,
uh, it does result in physical changes,
yeah.
and on all levels in your life. In the end, you know, um, it's about living a good life, and the more we're connected to that in our heart, that's really where that feeling is. So
Yeah, and I mean, see, I as a fellow Aquarian, I can get very
yeah,
metaphysical. I love the depth. I love getting into all of it.
yeah, yeah,
And so that's part of the reason I was so excited to have this conversation with you because I knew we could get into all of these
yes,
layers. And so if you're listening and you're like, "Oh, I'm not quite there into all of these pieces," it doesn't have to be like that, You're going to be met where you're at and it's going to support
mhm.
where you're at. And so but all of this is fun too and fascinating to me.
It is, it
Yeah,
is, it
yeah.
is.
And I think more and more people in especially in an age where we have so much automation and we do have AI building so much, there is, at least for me, there is that craving for depth,
Hmm.
craving
Yeah,
for depth and actually
yeah,
more seeking truth. So
yeah.
I hope
Well,
this conversation serves people in that way too.
yeah, I hope so too. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for being here. And check out the show notes to contact David to learn more about his work. And I will look forward to seeing you all in another episode.